Show.
It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, August 17th, 2022. Hope you're doing well out there and all across the World Wide Web. As always, we've got a barn burner of a show for you guys today. Holy moly, I don't know how we pull this stuff off. It's unbelievable. In a few minutes, we're going to be joined by, I got to say, the hottest guy, the hottest driver in NHRA Funny Car Competition, the one, the only Bob Tasca. A little later in the show, I believe about 2:35, 2:45, we're going to be joined by Top Fuel superstar Antron Brown. And then immediately following that, we'll hear from fresh-faced, no prep newcomer Marty Robertson. And I believe to round out the show, we're kind of doing a little dance right now to see if we can do it in about an hour and a half. We will hear from the most recent winner on the NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series, the Fuel Tech NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series, presented by D-Wagon, Justin Bond, who crushed them this past weekend at Heartland Park, Topeka. As always, action-packed show for you guys. But first and foremost, I want to do what I always do and tell you guys thanks for being here. Seriously, we cannot do this without you. It's an honor every Wednesday afternoon to be able to check in with all of y'all, talk about drag racing, gather around the sports water cooler, and share thoughts, feelings, insights, opinions, and everything in between. We feel genuinely privileged to get to do this, and we can't do it without each and every one of you guys. So thank you so much for being here, giving us your time. If you don't mind, click like, click share, click subscribe. If you're watching along on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're dropping stuff all the time. And of course, if you're watching on Facebook or on dragillustrated.com, or listening via iTunes, thanks for being here. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, anything that you can do. You'd be blown away how much a difference it makes. Guys, let's get right into it. I want to hear from my partners in crime here. What's going on, Mike Carpenter? What's up, Hudson? What's up, Jake?
What's up, man? We got JT McAfee's in the house today.
Yeah, I'm going to make him
I'm doing the McAfee
real quick. Hold on. Ready? This
there we go.
He's got a sleeveless tank top.
Yeah.
A sleeveless hoodie?
A sleeveless hoodie.
Sleeveless
Keep
hoodie,
your
man.
body warm,
Yeah.
the guns chilled.
Yeah, man. Sun's out, guns out. You know what I say, right? I looked all through my closet for some schmediums to wear specifically today to kind of rival T, but it didn't work out. This is actually like an XL. Believe it or not, this is an XL. I know you guys probably think that an XL would just gobble me up. You know, I'm so lean and mean.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, an XL typically it's like a trash bag, you know, but this one I actually unfortunately fill out.
They gotta cut back on tints that they make to make any something, you know. Then they run out of fabric.
Aren't you down like 20 or 30 pounds though?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. What's the secret? This ought to be good.
Summertime.
Chicken wings?
Summertime.
Oh yeah,
no, you just drink and you skip your meal. No, I don't know.
Man, if that was the case, you'd be like some kind of diet revolutionary.
Well, I get
you could have your own
lots
program.
of steps in when I'm at a bar talking.
You do.
I run hot laps around from table to table to table to table.
You do. And you're typically carrying a good amount of weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
2-3 drinks at once.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, 2 for yourself, and you're typically offering one up to someone else. You know,
Yep.
you're a caring guy. You're a giver.
I am. Try this. Try this. You gotta try this. Yeah.
Don't pull that on me in Indy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. JT feeding me drinks is bad news.
That's
but we're
good.
all going to be, the whole gang is going to be there at Indy. Let's talk about the schedule.
Why don't we just put our booth in the JW Marriott Lounge?
We should.
Are you talking about for PRI?
Yeah, that's PRI.
Yeah,
I'm talking
that's
about
PRI,
in a couple weeks.
Oh yeah.
JT, I don't think he's still wrapped his head around the fact that he's going to the U.S. Nationals.
Yeah.
This is a big deal for you.
Yeah.
You've never been to the U.S. Nationals? I think this is like, golly, it's probably coming up on 20 years straight that I've been going to this race. That's unbelievable. Crazy. It really is.
Long
we got big news. I thought we talked about it last week, but we got big news in Indy.
Have we made this public?
I don't know. Have we made this official announcement?
No, I don't think so.
Let's make it.
Okay, let's do it. Hey, guys, this is a big deal. If you live in the greater Indianapolis area, this is an even bigger deal. But we have been invited to broadcast an episode of the show Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. We're going to be touching base with y'all live from John Force Racing in Brownsburg, Indiana. They're going to bring us in, set us up in the museum area upstairs. Our friends at Peak Antifreeze made this deal happen. Brian Bolander and company, Sarah there at JFR, reached out to us and said, hey, we want you to do the show the week of the U.S. Nationals, the granddaddy of them all. We want you to do it live from our shop. And of course, we were all ears, and we've ordered some equipment. We're doing all sorts of different things, but we cannot wait. If you guys are in the area, we would love to see you. We will be in Indy for like a full-on week. I think we're going to be there for 7 straight days, from Tuesday to basically Tuesday. Can't wait for it. This is an event. If you haven't been to the NHRA U.S. Nationals, I don't get a kickback on tickets. I believe I should, but it is a special one. I think Mike will attest to this. It's one of the few drag races that you go to where you really immediately appreciate the rich history, the tradition that is this event. You can see it on every racer's face. You can roll through the pits, and it extends to the teams, the crews, the wives, the husbands, the daughters, the sons. Everybody that is on the property there at Lucas Oil Raceway at Indianapolis can kind of sense the severity, the gravity of the situation that is the NHRA U.S. Nationals. People talk about it losing its luster. I disagree. I think that event, you can come at almost anything with that opinion. If you want to be negative, you can be negative. Maybe it's whatever, not what you remember in 1975, but I'm telling you, it's the biggest drag race on the planet Earth, and you can sense it.
All the lead up to it, too. And like this thing that we're doing, and this is part of a bigger thing that John Force Racing is doing, having the media out for like a invite-only private tour, really taking care of the media, and then we're going to kind of cap that day. And stay tuned. We may have more announcements coming down the pipe too of other things we're doing at Indy.
All about the teasers, aren't you, Mike?
I love doing some teasers, man.
Mike eats this shit up with a fork and spoon. The celebrity treatment, Mike's here for it.
Yeah, if anything you can do to get or receive celebrity treatment, it
really is an amazing thing. I want to be. You don't want me to get all emotional here, but I will be honest, JT. I don't know that when you and I ever, dreamt this deal up and we were going live from an iPhone, right? Going live from an iPhone that was literally duct taped to a box of magazines, a box of Drag Illustrateds. I don't know that we ever thought that it would evolve and mature into what we're doing right now. When I say things, I believe that this is a very, very significant platform in the sport of drag racing. And the fact that John Force Racing's ringing our phone saying, hey, we want you to come here. We want you. Huge moment. Congratulations to our whole team at Drag Illustrated. We've been on this grind for 16 years. I think sometimes we're often, we internally are often reminded of just how long this deal's been going on. But I do think there are plenty of people that are relatively.
We used to be the young guys. Now we're like middle aged.
I know.
Maybe on the downside of this.
New subject. Subject. But if you think about when this magazine started, you guys, when this whole project started, we were working out of a chicken coop. Quite literally, the kitchen table at my parents' house. There's been some really dark days. Specifically early on, those early moments. We didn't know if we were going to be able to print the next issue. We would go from one to next with both fingers and toes crossed, like, holy crap. We need so many things to go right in order to keep doing this.
We only recently got out of that in the last couple of years.
To be here now, right? Oh, dude, to be here now and to be invited to John Force Racing, I don't even know that I fully appreciate it. I think maybe at some point in the future, we'll be able to look back and go, because in these moments, it's really difficult to kind of, it's like we don't take enough time to celebrate these little wins, right? And we're reminded all the time, especially the year that we've had in 2022 with all these racers and legends that we've lost. I think this is like a public service announcement to the racing community that, man, you go a couple rounds on Sunday afternoon or Saturday night, crack open a cold one, man. You never know. And you just, we're so blessed to get to do this. I truly believe that drag racing is something that we get to do. It's, I wake up and I took my son, I got to tell you this. I took my son to the Rocket League. I'm not sure how many people watching this are familiar with Rocket League. I know Mike knows what I'm talking about. JT, are you familiar with Rocket League?
I saw you talk about it.
Okay. So Rocket League is a video game. It's a very, very, very popular video game, and they had the Rocket League World Championships this weekend in Fort Worth, Texas. So stayed home from the races and took my little boy. He's not so little anymore. He's about 6 foot tall. It's unbelievable. And he started high school today.
He's about as tall. He's taller than you are. He's about as tall as I am.
Oh, he's taller than I am by a lot. And I mean, he started high school today, but he wanted to go to this Rocket League championship deal so bad. So I stayed home this weekend, went to the Rocket League championship. And when we were driving to the event, Dickey's Arena, it's about, 2 miles from where I sit right now. He was giddy excited, right? I mean, he was like, I've never seen him so excited, to be honest. I mean, 14 years this kid's been in my life, and I've never seen him as like revved up as he was to go to this event. And as we were driving to the Dickey's Arena, I looked at him and I said, I want you to know that the way you feel right now is the way I feel every weekend when I go to the racetrack. Like I love drag racing.
Can you help me explain this to your mother?
Yes.
So that she'll understand.
I told him, I said, the way you feel right now, where you're like antsy and you're smiling and you don't know why, that's how I feel when I smell race fuel. That's how I feel when I smell traction compound. That's how I feel when I walk through the gates of a racetrack and I see my brothers and sisters in arms. Like I'm that excited about drag racing, and to think about being able to do this for a living, talk about drag racing for a living. We're blessed, and I don't care where you fit in the sport, whether you're a talking head like us, a member of the media, you're a part of the industry because you own a business or you work at one of these incredible businesses that exist in this space, or you've got a race car or you're a weekend warrior, wherever. It is a privilege and an honor to go drag racing. There are people all around the world that don't have clean drinking water, and we're like pissed off about the rollout in the left lane, right? So we're a very, very, very lucky group of people, and to be here for this long, man, it's a legit pinch me moment. You know what I mean? And I got to be honest with you guys, we're just getting started. I mean, I know we've been 16 years along. We've been doing this for a hot minute, a decade and a half, but I feel like dominoes are starting to fall. A lot of the things that I've been dreaming about for years and years and years are starting to materialize. The stuff that we've got coming up in 2023 is going to change our industry. It's an exciting time, man. It really is. Oh yeah, Nicole Clark's in the comments right now. I've been told not to go down the rabbit hole of replying to every comment because I'm really bad about that. But Nicole Clark is in the comments right now saying Rocket League is huge. The women's team from Pittsburgh was at the PRI grand opening. It's an amazing thing, man. That event, they sold 13,000 tickets, sold out on Saturday, to come watch these kids play a video game for like a $2 million
that
prize.
esports deal is huge, man. I'm trying to groom my kid to just focus on that. I think that's a viable career option in the future. It
really is, man. One of the kids that were playing in like the top 6 teams was 15 years old, and he's out there competing with 2 other dudes for $2 million playing a video game. And I was blown away, man. Pep Boys was there. They had like a cool display, and they were giving out t-shirts. I'm walking around this video game event, right? And I'm seeing Pet Boy t-shirts, Mobile One, VP Race Fuels. I'm seeing all these different companies that exist in the motorsport space. And I'm like, this is bananas. Like, this is absolutely, I think that it was as well-produced of an event as I have ever seen, man. I have ever seen in my life. So anyways, guys, let's get into this week's episode of the 330. I think it'll catch everybody up on everything that's going on in the sport right now. As I mentioned in the show open, big weekend for the sport of drag racing. The NHRA took over Heartland Park, Topeka. Great crowd, great racing. We saw the PDRA roll into Maple Grove Raceway for the, what was it called? The Northern Nationals, excuse me. A ton of no prep events going on and various shootouts all across the country. Some big action at Tulsa Raceway Park in Oklahoma during the No Prep Kings filming. Lots going on, but let's play the video, and that will allow us to kind of go from there. Man, I don't know about you guys, but I love this. I love this project. Shout out to our in-house video production. What do we call him? What do we have a job title for Blake
Guru?
yet? Guru, video production
Yeah.
guru. Our video production specialist, Blake Fontenelle, has been cranking out these 330 videos for the last month or so. And man, for me personally, to be able to catch up with the entire, like a big portion of the sport of drag racing, a lot of the major happenings inside of 3 minutes and 30 seconds feels like a victory to me. Let's dive right into takeaways from the weekend. Mike, let's get into it, buddy. We saw the NHRA, as I said, roll into Topeka, Kansas for the NHRA Heartland Nationals. I don't think they call it the Heartland Nationals anymore, but I'm kind of holding on to it. Did you have any big takeaways? Obviously, we saw Joey Gladstone, I think, operate in rare air, low ET of every round, dominant performance, qualifies number 1, wins the race, massively impressive. TJ Coughlin, Troy Coughlin Jr. in Pro Stock going back to back. Man,
that's awesome.
This
momentum,
team,
man. That's
momentum.
what that's about.
I think what it's also about,
breakthrough.
Yes.
It's so hard to get that first win. We talk about this, especially in drag racing. It's like you have to learn how to win and get that first win, and then they seem to roll them off after that. And I think we're seeing that. And plus, that team, I think, also was trying something or was doing something a little bit different than the rest of the elite teams were. And I think that's paying off. I think we're seeing that across the board. I think maybe you're seeing that with Gladstone. Maybe you're seeing that with Antron. Maybe you're seeing that with Bob Tasca, to where maybe you're going to see that with Torrance. He's talked about that with us. Trying things early in the year may pay off at the end.
I am so glad. It was a wonderful thing, in my opinion. If we just kind of go through this blow by blow, let's look at the Corey Horton said, wow, looks like you missed Swanstron's win at Tulsa. Unfortunately, we don't have access to a ton of footage from No Prep Kings. Obviously, it's being filmed for a TV show. The Futures class and the Open Big Tire class and things like that are much easier to get footage of. But whenever they're trying to save that footage for a TV show, we don't push too hard, just so you understand why there was no inclusion there of Justin Swanstrom. It's nothing personal, obviously. It's just access to footage. And I would encourage anybody, if you'd like to see your race involved in what we're doing with the 330, shoot us a message here on Facebook, on YouTube, send an email, Wes at dragillustrated.com, any of these various emails, Mike at dragillustrated.com, JT at dragillustrated.com. We would love to see what you have going on over the weekend. But starting at the top, NHRA Top Fuel, Antron Brown, as you mentioned, scoring his first win of 2022, kind of a breakthrough moment for the driver as a fresh-faced team owner. You could almost see the relief. I don't even know that he was as excited as he was relieved. You could almost see it on his face that it just felt like a weight was lifted. He was operating a little lighter. And whenever I saw him actually in the media center after the race, I mean, you could see it just in his body language, right? I mean, he was sitting back, he was relaxed. I mean, it was, I really think, a moment of relief. I mean, can you imagine what it's like putting this whole thing together, right?
Yeah,
right.
We're used to seeing him kind of operate in that cool, calm, collected, nothing, the moment's never too big for him. But the pressure of being a team owner, man, that's a whole different deal. And I'm sure he was still getting acclimated to that. And we wondered when we were going to see this from Antron. They had struggled through the early part of the year. We saw Ron Capps break through, get his first win as a team owner. We saw Tony Stewart get his first win as a team owner in Top Fuel. And we were wondering what was going to go on with Antron's team. And cool to see them kind of get that breakthrough also. And Antron, we've got some stats here from Josh Hatchett. That was his first victory in 30 races. So it had been, races. It had been quite a while. And he hasn't won more than one race in a season since 2017. And before that, he won 4 or more races for 7 straight years.
Well, it's interesting because I think that it really speaks to how competitive NHRA Top Fuel is right now. I mean, it's easy to, get nostalgic about the days of 25, 30, whatever cars, but the volume of cars we have today, the caliber of cars we have today, there's hardly a car on the property that couldn't end up winning the deal. And man,
they kind of are. I mean, the wins are
few and far between, right? For a lot of these teams.
Scattered across.
Yeah, they're scattered across, and that makes it a lot of fun to watch, though.
It does, and I put that in the title of the show this week because I really believe that we're seeing. I mean, if this isn't the NHRA putting their best foot forward, I don't know what is, guys. I mean, I feel like we're seeing incredible competition across the board. I can't remember the last time we talked about this at Pomona, and during Pomona at the season opener, the Winter Nationals. We talked about it at those first few races in Phoenix and in Las Vegas and in Gainesville. You're going, something special is happening here. And I feel like pretty lucky to get to watch this unfold. I mean, who would have thought that we would see, I can't imagine a scenario where Steve Torrance is winless like 3/4 of the way through the season. And I thought he was going to break through this past weekend. I feel like he's on the cusp. It's going to happen. And to your point, Mike, I do believe there's some testing going on. There's some figuring out going on. But I'll be honest, I really feel like David Grubnick, Grubby, and Brittany Force have the whole field kind of chasing their tail. You start throwing down those mid 330 mile per hour trap speeds. If nothing else, it's indicative of power. And I think everybody's going, holy crap, if they're running mid 330s, that's where we need to be, especially as we get into like record-setting season this fall. And it's going to be important, man. It's coming. Where
Topeka was very hot, hotter than usual. I think 100, 101 one of the days. The track, obviously, teams struggle with the track in pretty much every class. But now going into this weekend, if you look at the conditions for Brainerd, it's like mineshaft or pretty dang good. Pretty big swing from Topeka. And are we going to see that? Indy is kind of always a toss-up. You never know. Usually kind of airs on the warm side there.
True.
But then we go Charlotte in the fall, Reading, St. Louis, always fast. Texas, Vegas is kind of an outlier, and then Pomona. And it is record-setting season. This is getting it season. This is when, to me, this is the most exciting part of the season. In all forms of drag racing, races are just stacked on top of each other throughout the fall. Everyone wants to take advantage of good weather. Everyone's maybe been on vacation or taking their time off in the summer, and it's time to get back to it in the fall.
I wonder, I'm anxious to see, I think one of the big questions that are going to be fun to see how it's answered will be how many of these teams are able to carry the success and the heat over to those killer conditions, because that's a whole other world. Bob Tasca is probably the team that I'm looking at the most right now going, okay, they have proven that they've got a hot rod in these kind of questionable, very difficult conditions. And it's really going to make what's going to tell the tale ultimately is whether or not they're able to carry that momentum into a 68, 70-degree weekend like we're staring down the barrel of in Brainerd, Minnesota, and later this fall whenever we're in the midst of the countdown. But I do believe, I stand by it, man. I think this is going to be, if not the greatest countdown to the championship in NHRA history, damn near it. It's got to be in the argument. I was literally looking through the points last night, and I'm going from Pro Stock Bike on up. You just don't know. There's obviously some favorites, but Top Fuel, Funny Car, I'm not saying they're wide open, but man, there's a lot of people in the mix, and it doesn't take but a couple of races to go your way. And we see how fast it can happen. I don't know that anybody would have considered Troy Coughlin Jr. a championship contender a month ago.
Or Tasca.
Or Tasca a month ago.
Might be the hottest driver of all the pro series right now.
Absolutely. And if you let a Coughlin kid get a sniff, if you let a guy like that who's been, they have a family tradition of dominance. They have a family tradition of excellence in the sport of drag racing. You let him get a little bit of momentum. You let him get some confidence, because I think personally, I don't mean to talk out of turn here, but if we're being honest, I think Troy Coughlin Jr., looking, from the outside looking in, it felt like he was lacking some confidence, right? It was just they were struggling, right? They were having some issues. The car would be there one minute, and the next minute it wasn't there.
Though.
Can you imagine operating in Jeg Coughlin Jr.'s shadow? I've said right here in this show that he's the best to ever do it. I think he is one of the best natural drivers of all time. And to try to live up to that, holy crap. And I think that it's just been kind of weighing on. You could see it on Troy Coughlin Jr.'s face. I think there was a genuine concern that he wasn't going to be able to do this. Like, I honestly think that had to go through his head a handful of times, that like, man, everybody on this team is doing really well. I got Erica Enders to my right, winning almost every race she's entered into. Aaron Stanfield on my left, doing damn near the exact same thing. Bo Butner hasn't had the season that I think he's expected to have, but the same type of situation, a couple of years off, new car blues, kind of getting back into the rhythm. But, looking at the stable of cars in that camp, I'm sure it had to be a little bit defeating to go, man, why are they having so much success and I'm struggling so bad? And you can't help. Everybody can talk about running their own race, one round at a time, all these other cliches. But I think we can all agree it's pretty easy to get in your own head start picking these things apart.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, you're, way out in left field, trying things, doing things that you shouldn't do, but you're trying to do anything. You're pressing. I actually saw this on ESPN this morning. I don't know anything about baseball, but it was like the manager or the coach of the New York Yankees, and they were asking him, do you think your players are pressing? And he's like, yeah, welcome to Major League Baseball.
For the Yankees.
Like, they are pressing. They're making mistakes out of pressing. And I honestly think we were seeing a little bit of that from that yellow and black Camaro. And TJ, now that he's had this breakthrough moment, hey, man, he's in the hunt. That's a hot rod.
Yeah. Talking about breakthroughs, how about the fight it's been for Greg Anderson to get that 100th win in the finals this weekend? I think that team's coming on. I think that they struggled, obviously, through the early part of the season, but they're going to be there in the countdown and contending for a championship. But it's crazy. I don't know what race it was
so
where
close.
He got 99, and then the breakthrough to get 100 is just been a tough one so far.
You could taste it. It was just right there, right?
It wouldn't surprise me to see that come in the next couple of races.
Man, I thought, not that I was counting out TJ. I was trying to run through the scenarios in my head, and I'm like, oh man, going back to back, scoring your first win in several years.
Out Greg. And then having the Jag Summit rivalry.
Had to take out his teammate, Erica Enders, probably the hottest driver in Pro Stock right now. Had to take her out in the semifinals, then race Greg Anderson, who you can tell has a chip on his shoulder right now. We're actually seeing from Greg that same level of racing with an edge that we've seen from Erica all year long. And it feels like that moment is just, it's anytime. But man, what a season that Elite Motorsports camp is having. It's honestly hard to fathom winning 9 or 10 out of 12 races, something
I know,
like that.
We say anytime, but as hot as they are right now, you can't count on it. They are dominating.
It's incredible, man. It really is. However, I do feel like we saw Greg Anderson close the gap a little bit in Topeka when you can make runs like that in those challenging conditions. But we just talked about it. Record-setting seasons around the corner, and it's going to get fast in a hurry. And typically, we saw a glimpse of it. If you think back to the NHRA's trip to Norwalk, Ohio, we saw Erica Enders in that red Melling Camaro go out there and lower the boom on the whole field. Cover them up. And if they're able to do that in the heat, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, like you said, Mike, this weekend when I think the high is 68 in Brainerd this weekend.
I haven't looked in a couple of days. I need to look at the Brainerd weather.
I think it's supposed to be cool, clear through the Midwest, and so.
But check out these. We've got some good stats on Tasca too. That was a second win in 3 races, fourth final in 5 races. So the man is hot right now. There's no denying that. We thought it was kind of going to be a 2-horse race. We were early in the year, Hagen and Height, and now Tasca's right there. What other funny car contenders do you see making a step up?
Man, I really think Matt Hagen, they've had this little stumble or whatever, if that makes sense. But a lot of it, for those that are, married to this sport the way that we are, the big talk the talk of town right now is in clutch discs. And we're hearing that just day in and day out. I think it's kind of like the ongoing ramifications of the global pandemic. I don't think we're seeing the same level of consistency with some of these clutch discs. I think that they're getting them from various sources, different materials being used. Again, I think I go back to some lack of consistency that I don't know that is necessarily anyone's fault. It's just the way of the world in 2022. It's a tough time to get things made. It's a tough time to source things. And we've heard this time and time again that, hey, we're experimenting with a new clutch setup, or we're experimenting with some new clutch discs. And we've got enough of these to kind of go back to our baseline when it comes time to count down to this championship time of the year, the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But I'd look to see Matt Hagen and that team right back in championship contention. They still are. Let's be honest. It can happen 1 race, 2 races into the countdown, and this deal could look dramatically different. I think the biggest, thinking about the countdown, staring down the barrel of this playoff season for the sport of drag racing, there's 2 things that come to mind. A, what we can do as a sport to make these races that lead up to the U.S. Nationals and the start of the countdown, the regular season, if you will. I don't know what we've got to do to kind of change, because I don't know how I feel personally. Like if I'm NHRA and I've got this whole sea of teams out here and all I'm hearing about is I'm testing stuff, testing this, you know what I mean? Like it's
right,
like,
you got to make it count for more, right? Yeah, I mean, that's
find a
what
way.
you're saying.
But this is common, man. NBA,
it is
great example.
Load trying lineups, right?
Road management through the season. We don't really do anything until playoff time, and then it's on. I think
NFL, they rest players, a lot of times.
NFL
towards
avoids
the end.
The urgency is there in NFL because it's only
more.
17 games and everything single elimination in the playoffs. Much more intensity there. But these other sports, baseball,
oh my goodness,
really until the World Series, no one cares about baseball. I'm
right.
sorry,
you can go to a game.
There.
You can take your kids to the game, and maybe they're going to go see their favorite player. And you get there, and
they're not
playing
today,
and it's horrible. But
so it's a common
long
thing.
Season though.
Anytime you have a playoff system like this, you're going to have on the back end of it this problem with the regular season. So I don't know what the answer
I think
is.
as the season goes on, I think we're going to have to watch out. Like for Toyota, I think that they're going to come on. As the season goes on, they're going to start figuring the car out, and I think it's going to be pretty.
Well, you got Caps. He's sitting third.
Yep.
J.R. Todd is in sixth. Alexis Joria is in eighth. So that's your Toyota cars there. John Force hanging in there at number 4 right now. Sneaky.
Yeah. Isn't it odd? I mean, if you think about it, I actually did this the other day, and I don't know if I want to share it with everybody, but I think it's kind of interesting. John Force was born in 1949, bro. Right? You know what I mean? Like the first Polaroid camera came out in 1949. The first ever successful television sitcom came out in 1949. I mean, the world, it's unbelievable, all the things that John Force has seen come and go, the teams that he's seen come and go, the technology that he's seen come and go. It's really crazy to think that he's 4th in the points in his 70s. And to be honest, he looks good. And the gamesmanship that we're seeing from him, like rolling in deep all the time. I mean, I just think it's cool that he's completely accepting the fact that he's got to do everything he can do on the starting line because he's racing against a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds.
What'd you think about that deal with him and Cruz, where they both rolled in deep, and then John's light flickered, his bottom bulb flickered, and then Cruz left, and I mean that was kind of a mess.
Yeah, man. I actually got a slew of messages about that, and I think people were pretty confused. To be honest, I don't know. We would probably need to get someone from CompuLink on here, Bob Brockmeyer or somebody, to really
I think
make sense
if Force's
of that.
Bulb hadn't gone out, it was pretty cut and dry that Cruz was very deep and then left. He was red, but the weird part was the bulb going out.
Yeah, I didn't understand, like, because if you think about it in terms of John Force's car rolls in and he goes deep, right? Turns out the top bulb, turns out the pre-stage bulbs, and then rolls forward enough to turn out the bottom bulb.
That's a red.
That's red, right?
But
because if he would have rolled backwards, it would have turned the top bulb back on.
Right, but he was stationary from what I could tell. I think it was some kind of malfunction, some kind of electrical or timing system weirdness that happened.
And to be honest, if you think about it, I hate it, and I know how hard it is, and I totally appreciate. I mean, I can't imagine how disappointed a Cruz Pedregon is, or all the guys that sweat their butts off over the course of 3 days in 105-degree temperatures in Heartland Park, Topeka, excuse me. But it's like those are the things that are going to happen. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
It's
but
tough
these things,
anytime you're the victim of something like that.
It really does. I mean, I think about the innumerable missed calls in stick and ball sports that happen. Unfortunately, that's part of it. And I think that our sport is blessed in many ways, right?
Right?
Yeah. I mean, we're blessed in many ways that we have so many controlled variables and we have some really great technology on our side. But those moments are going to happen, and it's, every once in a while they go in your favor. It seems like more often than not they don't. But definitely a tough one that left me. Yeah, hey man, that's human nature. We remember the bad stuff. We almost always remember the bad stuff, man.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
No, I think the NHRA is delivering some of the best drag racing that we've seen in years. To be honest, I think that that's just the amount of the competition from top to bottom, these independent 1-car, 2-car teams, a slew of single-car operations that are, Justin Ashley, look at what this young man is doing. They've got a legit chance. They've got a championship contending car, and it was not that long ago, a few years ago. You wouldn't have even it was so impossible to even think about winning a championship, winning multiple races without a 3-4 car team, right? And that's why what Steve Torrence did for so many years was so special, is that he was basically doing it as like a 1.5 car team, right? One car is out there all the time. His dad, Billy Torrence, is out there on like a limited part-time schedule when they needed him. But man, the amount of...
Check out the single car teams in the point standings in Top Fuel. It's
up.
pretty wild.
Break them down.
Well, you got Mike Salinas, you got Justin Ashley, Steve Torrence, Josh Hart, Leah Pruitt, Tony Schumacher, Antron Brown. All those are in the top 10. And I
pretty
believe
impressive,
all of those
man.
are single car teams.
I mean, and I know there's some alliances
Yeah.
there, right? I mean, obviously, like Trip Tatum is kind of a satellite car for
Right.
Torrence, as is his father's car. I know that there's an alliance between Antron Brown and Justin Ashley to some extent.
Clay sitting there at 11th too.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very exciting time, I think, to be a fan of or involved in NHRA drag racing. And when I see these guys being willing to stick their neck out, and not only, obviously the courage required to race one of these cars, to just strap into one of them, but to own one and to operate a team and deal with all that, all the nuances of owning a race-related business, it's an incredible thing, man. It really is. And I think that if we can see more of these single car operations have success, perhaps we will see more people come into the sport and try to, because I do think the value is big,
healthier.
man.
It makes the sport healthier to have, instead of all of your eggs in one basket. That was always the fear behind the Schumacher and Force and super teams and any others that have existed. And I think having it spread out,
you want to compete, right?
Yeah. Well,
it
also welcomes competition and it invites new blood. And it kind of, I don't want to say level the playing field, but it sort of spreads the wealth.
Yeah, I agree,
it a little more.
I mean, if you just, man, there's a lot of different ways to kind of cut this up, but I mean, even just spreading out some of the talent. I mean, just getting some crew guys that are spreading these guys around, spreading the car chiefs and the crew chiefs around a little bit and letting everybody, because it felt like there was a handful of teams that had 6 high-level crew chiefs or whatever working on 3 or 4 cars. And we need some of those guys to kind of find their independence and go do their own thing on one of these smaller operations. And it's put our sport in a really great position, because it's very interesting, because we've pointed at Pro Stock as this example of how it's done, right? And Pro Stock is obviously healthy right now, but it is interesting because almost the entire field is comprised of 2 teams.
Yeah.
And as good as that is in one hand, perhaps, I mean, it's a great thing, right? I mean, you got Elite Motorsports fielding 5, 6, 7 cars at any given time. You got KB Racing fielding, 3, 4, or 5 cars. It's a great thing. But at the same time, you're right, Mike. I mean, you've got all your eggs in this basket, and it's a tough place to be. And how do you get people excited? Because this is a sport comprised of blue collar people, right? Small business owners, medium-sized business owners. And I don't think it's an unusual thing to think that a lot of these guys want to do it on their own, right? They want to own this stuff. They want to go
the drag racing.
Way. That's like the drag racing thing.
Entrepreneurial, self-made spirit. And I think that in the past, it's been, all right, if you're going to compete in any of these pro classes, you got to be on Schumacher. You got to be on Force. You got to be a part of these teams to do anything. And now we're seeing that you can make it as an independent team owner, as a single car team. And I think that's exciting. We were hoping we would see that going into this season. We kind of predicted or talked about that in the offseason of all the new blood coming in. And I think we're sort of seeing the fruits of that.
And I think it's tough because it's just cheaper. If you think about it from the perspective of a guy, this isn't maybe common knowledge. It's going to be infinitely cheaper to ring the phone of one of these team owners and say, hey, how much for me to fly in, drive your car? I don't want to have a CDL. I don't want to hire a truck driver. I don't want to stop at weigh stations. I don't want to keep a log book. I don't want to deal with payroll. It is, anybody who's been around this stuff for any period of time knows that the racing is such a small sliver of what is required to be successful out here. I mean, you've got to have an HR department. You've got paid time off and people getting sick or people getting hurt. I mean, it's so complicated.
It's a small business.
And if you're a well-to-do business owner and you can ring one of these dudes' phones and say, hey, I want to run 10 races, what's that going to cost? And they say, oh, that's $500,000. You make a monthly payment or whatever, you go race. You don't got to house a truck and trailer. You don't have to have a business and, a shop in Mooresville or a shop in Brownsburg. I understand it, but I do think it's a touch problematic because, to your point, Mike, the entrepreneurial spirit in the racing community is alive and well. And a lot of these guys want to just say they did it. Look no further than Comp Eliminator. Like, some of these classes, you can't do shit any harder than they do it, right? Like, hey, we're going to take a 500-inch V8, big block Chevy. We're just going to cut it in half.
Yep.
We're going to run half of it. Why? Well, we just think that'd be the hardest possible thing to do. But that's what gets these guys out of bed in the morning. And if you know that, I feel like we got to find ways to lean into it. And it feels like that's happening a little bit in NHRA Top Fuel. So speaking of NHRA Top Fuel, I'm peeking down here in the green room, and I think we are joined by our first guest of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, before I do this, and I'm expecting a rousing applause. I mean, I'm talking like,
where's your
raucous.
air horn, JT?
Did you buy an air horn yet? You're muted, JT.
You're muted.
Perfect. Just the way we like it.
You're muted, T.
You're still muted.
There. You need to buy some new ones.
Man.
Well, man, I was doing you guys a favor. They're fixing more concrete outside the office.
Oh, they're running jackhammers outside of the Drag Illustrated office? Yeah, I'm sure that's wonderful. Is that why you're sleeveless? Are you fitting to throw on a hard hat, run outside?
I might run out there. I'm going to tie some rebar here in a little bit. You never know about me.
All right. Well, hey, guys, real quick.
About you.
Let me remind everybody, and let me pay some bills here real quick. I got to do payroll this Friday. Guys, I want to remind everybody that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits, gloves, and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com/Wes to be automatically entered into a contest to win a set of Defender Series seatbelts from our buddies at Stroud. Make sure you tell them we sent you. I guess that link will probably do the trick. Huge shout out to Tommy, Anita, the whole gang at Stroud Safety right up the road in Oklahoma City. Guys, let's brace for impact here. I don't know if we've ever had AB. I don't know if we've ever had AB
at PRI, which
at
most
PRI,
of
live and in person.
Yeah, we had him live at PRI, which was very cool, but not actually on the real deal show here.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about it. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the most recent winner on the NHRA Camping World Series Tour, the one, the only, Antron Brown. What?
Hey. What's up?
What's up, baby? Big dog?
I'm here.
What's up, buddy? How are you, man?
Oh, man, I tell you what, man, we've been nonstop. And, you just were paying the bills. I am literally paying the
bills. There you go. We need to see the names on those checks.
I don't mean...
I just need the routing number.
Yeah. I don't mean to talk out of turn, Antron, but before you joined us, I said to the guys here that more than anything else, like the way you watching your media center interview from this past weekend in Topeka, your body language even kind of showed relief. Were you starting to wonder, like, man, are we going to be able to do this? Is this going to elude us forever? Because you could see like a sigh of relief across your face.
Yeah, like it was like one of those deals where you're like, like we've been traveling on this journey and we're just trying to get through this tunnel. And as we're going through this tunnel, we got all these things just falling on us, like boom, 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 boom. And we're just trying to avoid them, get through it. And for a minute, we're like, where's the light? We can't see the light no more. And finally we busted through, and now we're on some ground that we could grow upon. And before, we were just trying to find our way with, the startup of a new team. Like, I had what you call, like, here at AB Motorsports, we had a true startup where we bought select parts and pieces from DSR. Like, we didn't get the truck, the trailer, all the parts and pieces and this and that. We started and saying, we're starting to slate clean, and we got all brand new parts and pieces, and we had some new sponsors, new partners like Lucas Oil. So we started off helping with the oil, developing a new blend that we were running. And we did everything, brother, from brand new clutch with CNC Performance. And then we went with new blowers from Darren Mayer, DMPE. And then we have 0.1 blocks. We were running some DSM blocks. We were on DSR cylinder heads from Don Schumacher Racing cylinder heads, their rods, diamond pistons. And we had to bring all this stuff together to make this package work. And along the way, we had hiccups. Just what it was, just this not working right, that's not working right, find out why it's not working and what is working, what's causing the problem, where's the gremlins at, do we have electronical problems? And the thing about it is we were patient, and it was a process of eliminations till we finally got to where we need to be. And we just started seeing some light after Denver this year. Denver was a turning point where things went really bad that showed us what really was wrong, because Denver just magnifies everything by 10, what something's wrong. And then we worked on it, and we came out. In Sonoma, we were good. We just lost a tough race. And Seattle was the same way, where we're like, we qualified in the top 5, and we're like, all right, man, this is our race. This is going to be our weekend. And we just messed up. And we're out front in Leah, and then we ran into our low clutch map and shut the clutch off. And we lost because our car just pretty much parked itself on the racetrack going, the clutch stopped moving. And when it did that, she passed us up and beat us by 10, 11 thousandths or something like that. And then that was it. And then we just came out with Topeka with our heads down and with vengeance. And we didn't qualify where we wanted to, because Friday night was the qualifying deal. We were on a 77 run, and our car safety system shut our car off. So
isn't it crazy? Like, because it's almost always something. Like, there's so many ways to lose a drag race. It's exhausting. You mentioned a couple of things that I find particularly interesting that I want to touch base on. I guess first I'm going to back up. What do you think was the biggest, and we touched on this a little bit when we were side by side at the PRI show, but that was before the war. That was preparing for the war that you're in now, right? What has been the biggest surprise? Like, looking back on the last, I guess, almost 8 months now since we checked in together there at on the floor of the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show. What has been the biggest surprise? I mean, has it been the HR, dealing with human beings? Has it been dealing with sponsors? Has it been the car itself? I mean, what has been the biggest surprise as you have embraced this team owner role?
I think the biggest surprise is for sure that I can speak from the HR standpoint is dealing with people, because we went through a few crew members till we got to the crew that we got now. You know what I mean? Like, find out some people ain't made for racing. Just, they're not made for the travel. They're not made to be on the road. They're not made and thinking like racing. A lot of them think it's like they came in. I think some people think it's a hobby job, and they didn't realize what it really takes to race. And it's not a 9 to 5. So I'm letting all America know, on the Drag Illustrated show, racing is not 9 to 5. It's, you got to put it in, and overtime, it is every day if you want to go out there and succeed. And you always got to keep inventing yourself to be better. So with that being said, I think that was the biggest surprise, where, like, we lost some crucial crew guys over the year, and to get some people to step in and fill those voids. And you never take it for granted, but you really do take it for granted. And that's one thing that I could honestly say, that you were like, wow, like, all right, we got to fix that. We got to fix that. And then you got to spend time to cultivate the crop. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, grow it. You got to grow it and be patient. And then you got to let it take, where we all can come together and work together as a tight-knit unit. And we're starting to get that way right now, where you can communicate without talking.
Do you think that culture, like, do you feel like it was extremely, how valuable, I guess the question is, how valuable was your experience working with Don Schumacher, right? I mean, this is, when it comes to team owners, I think perhaps the best to ever do it. That's no shade at John Force Racing and some of the Connie Coletta and some of the other iconic people. But when you talk about someone who ran a tight ship, had a very successful business, competed at a high level for many, many years, what was it like learning from that and having that experience to lean on? One of the examples, and I love any opportunity to compare guys such as yourself to superstar athletes like LeBron James, but one of my favorite stories is, LeBron left Cleveland as an NBA basketball player, went down to Miami to join the Miami Heat, and he talked about learning how to win a championship, learning what it takes. Like, he went down there and learned the way of Phil Riley, or Pat Riley, and learned the way of winning a championship. And then he brought that back to Cleveland and put them in the winner's circle in year one. Do you think that mean, how valuable was that experience alongside Don Schumacher? Because we had Don on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned you specifically, Antron, is that it was no surprise to him because you guys had been working on this for years. He knew that it was on your vision board to own your own team. Yes. And this was a long process. But how valuable was that relationship? Because you know what it takes to win a championship. You know what it takes to race at a high level. How much of a shortcut has that been?
Well, it is no shortcuts, to be honest with you, Wes. It's not a shortcut. What it is that there's been plenty of people. Just think about it. Think about all the people that raced for Don Schumacher over all the years, from Gary Scelzi on down. You know what I mean? Whit Bazemore, all the best of the best has raced here almost here at Don Schumacher Racing, right? So the thing about it is, for me, was literally learning like the do's and don'ts. You get what I'm saying? Like
100%.
Like you're looking at it, you're like, hey, like Don goes, AB, sometimes I was never the smartest or most talented person in business. But one thing I can tell you is that I outworked my competitors. While they took off, I was still on. And that's what it is. You gotta actually like literally dig in and say, this is what I want to do. And for me, I knew that a long time ago. And I let Don know, and it was no surprise. It was no doing this, doing that. I say, this is what I want to do. And trust me, he played the devil advocate a few times and going, well, I'm going to let you know how rough it is. Okay, I'm going to show you how hard it is, and you might not want to do it because it's rough. And it is. But the thing about that I've learned at DSR for all those years, if you put the right people around you, okay, that's where success comes. It's not the parts and pieces you buy. It's not how fancy your rig looks going up and down the road. And sometimes it's not as much money as you got, but money is a key factor, okay, that for you to afford and pay employees and to keep them and keep the same one so you could build a dynasty. You get what I mean? So what I saw was he had all the best people here, and he didn't micromanage them. He let them run the race teams. You know what I mean? I got to help run my team. I got to do all the sponsor obligations. See, I did all that stuff before. Like, I owned my own bike team a long time ago. I was doing all that stuff here just underneath the DSR umbrella. You know what I mean? And the same thing with Caps. He did all this Napa sponsorship obligations and stuff like that. And his stuff's a little bit different. You have to talk to him about how different his stuff is because he leases that, does this, does that, where I'm on my own. You get what I mean? I'm like literally, I looked at Don. Don goes, well, I can still be a part of it with you. Do this. I was like, Don, I got to do this for me and my family and for my team. And I got to go. Like, I got to.
I applaud you. And I really do. I think it takes the intestinal fortitude that it takes to go into business for yourself. A lot of people don't. I don't mean to like be, shut anybody down, but it's hard. It's harder than it looks, right? I mean, a lot of guys see you winning, standing in the winner's circle on Sunday, holding a trophy with all these logos on your fire suit. And it's like, man, what a deal. How awesome is that? That guy's so lucky. But to your point, I mean, it's all day, every day. I hear people tell me like they started their business like, man, I haven't taken a day off. I'm like, yeah, no shit. I'm sorry. But like, that's just, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, that's just what it takes all day, all night. And obviously, you get to a point and it doesn't have to be that way. And, everybody deserves to take a break. But if you're going to succeed, I mean, the moment you slow down, someone else is speeding up. And I'm curious, what's your take on we were talking before you joined us just about the health and wellness of the NHRA. We're big believers that we're kind of looking at, this is a great time to be involved in our sport. The success of a lot of these single independent operations seems to be, encouraging, right? Do you think that, what's your take on like the state of the industry right now and the state of drag racing? I mean, how are your conversations going with sponsors? What's the feedback going? How are you doing? I mean, how's business?
Business right now is good. And the thing about it is, for me to start this business at the time that I started it, that was a nail biter. Okay. But now we're starting to get the ship is not like this no more. The ship is starting to playing down. You know what I mean? Where we're coming afloat, we're seeing what's coming, and we're understanding what angles we're going to get hit at, and understand how to do it all. And it's just getting comfortable by being uncomfortable. You get what I mean? And I've learned that about business. You got to understand how to. That's the only way you get successful, is because you got to get comfortable with the uncomfortableness. You know what I mean? And at first, man, I was like, oh, Lord, this is happening. This is happening. But you learn as you go. And when you look at our sport, the sport is growing now. You know what I mean? Like you're seeing like Leah Hagan over there with Tony Stewart. You see what I have done. You see what, like, you know, Justin Ashley's got his deal with Dustin Davis Racing, like they're together. You know what I mean? Then you look over and then you see on the other side, you see Ron Capps starting to get his stuff going. He's going. And what it's going to do is you're seeing all these small seeds are starting to be all plant. They're going to start growing. And as we start growing, the sport's going to start growing now, because now we got one plant. We ain't got branches off of them yet. Like Don Schumacher had the old maple tree, man. That thing had like 8 or 12 branches going off of it. Force has still got 5 or 4, like, you know what I mean? And as you see, they're going to stay that way. And same thing with Coletta. Well, now you're introducing the other teams. They start getting those branches going off of them. You're going to start seeing 20. We've seen it this year already in Top Fuel. We had 22 cars at a race, 21 cars. And then you see new people coming into sport like Will Smith, top alcohol dragster. He's getting his fuel license. He's trying to come over, great marketing present. So when you're starting to see stuff like that, the sport is definitely growing, and we're getting more interest because people are starting to see the value that NHRA drag racing brings to the table and how diverse, and all that stuff is great. But the thing about it is we bring a great value, and we just got to get it out there more.
I mean, talk about for a minute about Toyota. Like they're a brand that has come into this space, obviously not new to the space, but my goodness, are they making some noise. They are making waves. These Toyota super funny car bodies are beautiful. I think they're probably the best looking funny car there is. The commercials with you and the gang. I mean, to see them doing that, has that been like exciting for you as it has been for all of us watching to see a major auto manufacturer like that kind of wrap their arms around the sport and get excited about it? We talk about that a lot, that it's great to see a new sponsor in the sport of drag racing, but time and time again, it would seem you see a new brand come into the sport and they put their sticker, you know, on a car, on a hauler, and then a year later it's gone. But when you see someone like Toyota do it, the activations on site, sending the R&D team to help with the different race teams. I mean, has this been as exciting for you as it has been for all of us?
It has been, because we've been getting in so many different areas, and I show up and I go to the airport, I'm getting on the plane, and people goes, hey man, I saw your commercial. Oh, I saw this or I saw that. Oh, you were hilarious. Hey, that's Antron Brown. And it's funny when I sit down, I'm like, how they know it's me? And then I look down, I say, oh man, I got my Mako shirt on. Oh, I got my Toyota racing shirt on. Oh, that's why they seen it and everything else. And the guy goes, no, I just heard your voice. I'm like, oh, great. So it's stuff like that gets you going, and it feels good, because you know that our sport is resonating out there. It's catching on, where it's getting to households. You know what I mean? Like I looked at Instagram. I was never a big social media deal. Like within like 3 weeks, we gained 25,000 followers. You know what I mean? Wow. So it's like we're like, that's a move. You know,
it's
what I mean?
A move, man.
Like, that's a move. So we're like, man, it's like, what is this sport going to? Like, look at it. It's at that point right now where it's about to launch. And the thing about it is we just got to figure out where we want to go and how we want to get there, because it's there. The road is there. And we have a lot of exciting things to talk about.
I sure think so. I mean, I look at our sport right now and I think about how much, just the volume of racing that's taking place any given weekend. I mean, just this past weekend, obviously we got the NHRA rolling into Topeka, but you know, the PDRA is racing in Maple Grove, and there's no prep events going on all over the country, and there's door slammer racing going all over the country, and big money bracket races going on all over the country. Huge crowds. I mean, one after another sellout crowds we're hearing about at independent races, right? I mean, they had US 131 up in Martin, Michigan, packed to the gills a couple of weeks ago for their annual Funny Car Nationals. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And I agree with you, man. I feel like drag racing as a sport is kind of, you know, despite some of the silly nonsense that you see on social media, I really believe that our sport's in a fantastic position. You mentioned a couple last things before we let you go, Antron, and I appreciate your time, man, and I appreciate your candor. We can always count on you to kind of give us a straight dirt. I noticed in the winner's circle, you mentioned Darren Mayer, DMPE. How important are those hard parts in Top Fuel racing right now? I think that, the outside looking in, the lay person, it kind of, everybody's got the same stuff, right? But clearly there's some differences there. I've had a lot of conversations with crew chiefs and drivers the last several months about varying clutch discs, and they're getting harder to get, and how many they have left. Then we hear you talking about supercharger development with Darren Mayer. Can you kind of touch on some of those things? Like, how important is your blower program right now? How much effort is going into the supercharger on a Top Fuel car right now?
It's huge. It's huge. And we were here at DSR. They had their own blower development program, and we did a lot with Chuck Ford back in the day. Chuck Ford was very hands-on, did all of our blowers, and then we had PSI rotors in them. Then it kind of changed where we still had a Chuck Ford case, but then we went to Bill Miller rotors, different inserts, different, divider bars inside the injector. And then that kind of just stayed stagnant, stayed the same for so long. And then what we did was we were we've been struggling a little bit here and there. And then we got Darren Mayer reached out to us, and then we did a little B2B deal with him and working on some stuff. And we got to rolling. He built us a blower, and it was sitting in a trailer for months, and we never put it on the car, and just sitting there. And then he's on our crew chiefs. He's talking to Brian and Mark and them. I didn't even know that we had it at one point. I knew that we had it for the last month and a half, but I didn't even know we had one. And the funny part is that we put it on for Seattle to try it, and went on there. We stepped on the gas, and that thing was awesome. He set it all up. That's what Darren does, blueprint them. And the cool part is he's kind of an R&D blower person, because he'll do whatever you want on your blowers that you want. Not like what he thinks is best. What do you want?
Really?
And I customize them to the way you want them. You want this opening or you want that opening? Do you want divider? You want it like this? You want it like that? It's like your recipe, but he's R&D, and he'll put it together and make sure it's right for you. Then you maintain it. And the craziest part of it is that after we did all this, we talked to him. It was the first places you can go. Parts are on the shelf. Like, you see a picture, there's 20 cases on the shelf. Rotors sitting on the shelf. End frames sitting on the shelf. So when you hurt or blow something up, you don't have to have, before, we tried to have 5 blowers. You tear one up, you got 4, then you can get another one together, but it might take you a month and a half to get another one together.
Right.
He's got it. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing that we did with CNC Performance on our clutches.
Clutch discs, yeah.
With Chris, not clutch discs, actually the clutch.
The clutch, okay, yeah.
Like the flywheel, the hat, the donut, levers, everything. And we switched over to him because he's got parts ready available. Chris does over at CNC Performance Clutches. So when you see all that, these are the reasons why you you actually go, this is where I need to go. Now I ain't got to order my rotors from Bill Miller. I ain't got to try to get my end frames from DSM, which they have them. You know what I mean? Then I got to get a case from Chuck Ford, which is a really great case. You know what I mean? And then I got to get the shoe. I got to get this. I got to get that. And then you got to piecemeal this all together. And then you got to have end frames to make everything work right. You get what I mean? You can't have one set of end frames. And then once you get the right set of end frames, you got to get another set. So if you ever do something wrong or they get messed up, you could put another end frames in there so the blower works the same. You get what I mean?
Is whenever you guys are doing all this different blower development, Antron, is it like a matter of, is it trying to make more boost? Is it trying to generate less heat? Is it trying to make them more efficient? What are you guys like? Where are you guys trying to press to make a difference in your blower program right now?
Well, that's where it's at right now. It's basically making the blower more efficient.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. If you make it more efficient, you're going to make more boost and you're going to create heat. That's the last thing you want to do. If you have weak blowers, you spin them harder. They make more heat. And when they make more heat, they make the distribution change all over the place and they're not efficient. If you can spin a blower slow, make the same boost, and have good power at the snap of the throttle, that's a good blower. So, and for us, we've gotten 2 blowers from from Daramera, DMPE, and they're the same. They work the same. Like we don't have to spin.
Very rare, right? I mean,
brother,
these things like have their own personalities, right?
You got to tingle them. One, you have to run them like a 0.5% more, 0.5% less. Or you freshen it up, it runs really good. Second run runs really bad. We run them for like 2 to 3 runs, like back to back. Like we run it for one run and put the other one on for the next run, and the car performs the same. And then we're able to put the one that cooled down back on, performs the same.
That's rare air.
You put it back on, performs the same. When you get that, that's when you're able to start tuning the car in, going rounds, more race wins. Race wins equal championships. And it's about consistency, but it's a package deal. Like the blower, it's got to work with the clutch. The clutch, it's got to work with the engine. Like everything's got to is a
harmony. You know, it's so funny. There's a harmonious relationship is required, right? I mean, you can have all this different stuff, the best stuff, like you said, you can have all the money in the world, but you do have to find a way to make that whole combination make music. Speaking of making music, and this will be the last thing, buddy, and I genuinely appreciate you spending so much time with us. We're going from 105 degrees and people talking about heat exhaustion and nightmarish conditions for the most part in Topeka, Kansas, to this weekend. We were talking amongst the team earlier today. I think the high is like 68 or 70 in Brainerd. I mean, it's jacket weather. I'm packing a coat. Are you excited about going and getting some killer conditions? Do you think that you'll be able to maintain that momentum that you achieved in Topeka despite such dramatic conditions, or would you rather it be 105?
No, I'm looking forward to the cold weather, because the reason why we're looking forward to going to Brainerd, it kind of sets you up for the countdown. Mm-hmm. When you go to Brainerd, we always get those cool weather, because you go to countdown, you're going to be racing all fall races. Think about Indy is beginning in September. Our next race is Charlotte, and that's fall time starting on the East Coast. It's not hot weather. It's going to be like mediocre weather, like high 70s, maybe low 80s at the most. And we're going to need to know how to throw down, because that's what's going to take to win a championship. Because the championship, it starts off in Charlotte, you go to Reading, and then you're going to go to Dallas. And all 3 of those races are going to be fast. And then you're going to go to Vegas and St. Louis. Like St. Louis is going to be really fast too. So all the races that we're going to end the year with are going to be very, very fast races. But if we get a little heat, we know we can race in the heat. We're not even worried about that. But what we want to do is we want to get back to our mid 60 and high 60 setup that was going to take the run to actually win this championship this year.
Man, it's been an exciting thing to watch. And truly, Antron, we're so excited for you and happy for you. Congratulations. I mean, hearing you talk about your wife helping with hospitality, I mean, we're a family business here. So that stuff's music to our ears. And I hope that it's been a rewarding experience. It sure looks like it has been. It was great to see you have that breakthrough moment. And as you well know, you get that first one out of the way and the rest of them, they seem to start coming a little quicker.
Absolutely, they do. Because you know what it takes to do it. And all the guys on the team do too. Together. So, Wes, I appreciate you being on the show.
Dude, we appreciate you, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you this weekend at Brainerd. I'll swing by and say hi. If you need anything from us, let us know, man. And hey, be careful out there. Keep doing what you're doing. You're a fantastic ambassador for the sport of drag racing. We need Antron Brown in the winner's circle as often as we can get it. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Antron Brown.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Stay out of trouble.
Will do.
Guys, I want to remind you that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by way of our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that perform and protect better than any other on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your motorcycle, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about Redline. Log on to redlineoil.com for more information. Mike, man, how about AB, right? What a personality. I just think that he is such a great ambassador for the sport of drag racing, full of energy, full of enthusiasm. It's important to have guys like Antron out front leading the charge.
No doubt. And we'll take him in the winner's circle as often as possible, like you said. And a guy that's worked it up through the deal too. I mean, for Pro Stock Motorcycle to owning his own Top Fuel team. Now he's got his whole family involved. They did a cool segment on the NHRA broadcast, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, about his son and the involvement that his son has on the team, and sort of learning the ropes and just passing it on to the next generation. So just all around, from every angle, Antron is great for drag racing, especially NHRA drag racing.
And he's got a great vibe too. I mean, just his vibe, and he's energetic, and you can just truly tell that he enjoys what he's doing.
It's a classic example of like, for all the right reasons. And I know that at times, and these things sound cliche, but I really believe if you do the work and you put in the time and the effort and you do it for the right reasons, success, money, those things, they'll follow. And it can be tough to wait it out, but because it can be a grind. But man, I really think that guy's going to have a very long career in our sport.
And how about him basically telling Don Schumacher, nah, man, I want to do this all on my own.
That's the point we were just making, right? I mean, we run into it all the time. It's one thing. We talked about this with Don Schumacher a couple of weeks ago. They talk all the time about, how hard it is to find good help. Very true. But I find it to be equally difficult, if not more so, to keep good help once you have it. Because a lot of these guys, the Antron Browns of the world that are going to go deliver championships for you and represent you in a professional manner and make good with the sponsors and make good with the media, all the things Antron does, they're enterprising people. They are onward and upward. They're not going to be able to stand still for very long. They want to feel progress. They want to feel, a sense of accomplishment. They want to do it for themselves. And it's tough, man, because you have to really create a special environment. Not to say that DSR hasn't, excuse me, but it is a very, very significant challenge to keep guys like that on your team, because they're likely to go out and do it on their own, So it's a good thing. Honestly, it really is. I know I tried to get Don to say this last week, but he really is something of a proud papa for our sport. I mean, we need him. He has birthed innumerable superstars in the sport of drag racing. And I hope he knows.
And he has to know, a guy as smart as him has to know, when you've got, the super team and all that talent, that they're going to branch out on their own. It's like a coach in the NFL, the coaching tree. The successful coaches end up with their assistants and all over the NFL as head coaches. And I think that they may say one thing publicly, but they have that proud papa deal going on inside.
I sure think so. I sure think so. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, hey, let's switch gears dramatically here, right? We're going to go to the total opposite end of the earth when it comes to drag racing. And we're going to go all the way from the NHRA Heartland Nationals in Topeka, Kansas, to the most recent stop on the No Prep Kings Season 5 tour. Osage Casino, Tulsa Raceway Park. This past weekend, we saw the stars and cars of No Prep Kings take over Tulsa Raceway Park. Place was packed out. Great racing from top to bottom. Justin Swanstrom takes out Lizzie Musey in the final round to earn, I believe, his first win of 2022. Correct me if I'm wrong. First win for a screw blower in the invitational category. They made that switch a couple of months ago. It was huge news in our sport when they made the switch from a pro charter to a screw blower. We're seeing more of that. And our next guest, Marty Robertson, has joined the fray as well, threw his hat into the ring with the No Prep Kings Futures category. For those that don't know, this is a kind of an open door policy, part of the No Prep Kings season filming, where they welcome come one, come all. If you want to come be a part of this movement and basically kind of get your feet wet before maybe moving into the invitational category or finding your way wherever you're going to end up, this is where you go to do it. Marty Robertson's gone back to back, scored the win at the No Prep Kings stop at the end of July in Houston. Big win for the team, and then switched combinations over the course of a month. This is hilarious. I mean, you just don't see this, right? Especially early success.
How many combinations has the Badfish had in it? That's going to be a question.
We'll have to ask him. I wonder if we can get him to like pull out some invoices. This will get real exciting in a big hurry. But Marty tables the Pro Charger combination, switches to a screw blower, sends the car up the road to St. Louis, Missouri, has it swapped over at Larry Jeffers Race Cars to a screw blower, comes out. First outing, puts the thing in the winner's circle. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the one, the only, Fort Worth, Texas's own, right down the road from me, 12 minutes away, the one, the only Marty Robertson. What?
You guys are hilarious.
What's
going on, buddy? How many different iterations has the Bad Fish had? It's been everything but a nitrous car, right?
It's literally been everything except for a nitrous car.
What do you have against nitrous, man?
Oh, he don't like it.
Nothing. I'm not changing pistons. It doesn't work for me.
I don't blame you. It looks like you're doing well with the screw.
Oh, my goodness, man. Well, hey, obviously, congratulations on all your success and early success, which we, in the sport of drag racing is few and far between. But what I really want to talk to you about, Marty, is as someone who has seen the sport of drag racing from a lot of different angles, right? I was first introduced to Marty Robertson and the Bad Fish Barracuda by way of Radio Verse the World, right? I think the first time our paths crossed were down in Valdosta, Georgia at Lights Out many, many moons ago. Donald Long's big promotion, big production down there at South Georgia Motorsports Park. You've ran Radio Verse the World. You've done NHRA Pro Stock. You've done all sorts of street cars, high-end street strip stuff, and now you have dived into No Prep Kings competition. And I guess I would just like to know, could you compare and contrast it a little bit for us and give us a little insight as to your early impressions on the No Prep world? I mean, we all see the videos, we all see the photos of these tracks packed out, people lined up. I mean, what's your take on this deal?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I mean, anybody who knows me knows that I'm an auto sports enthusiast, whether it's, high-end street cars, drag racing. Autocross isn't really my cup of tea, but I do like to watch a little bit and go out and play on the tracks a little bit from time to time just to take out some stress. But you're asking about, give me perspective on the no prep racing, probably in comparison to other types of racing. I'll be honest with you, my initial interest in getting into no prep racing is a lot like a lot of the guys that have been out there for a long time. I grew up as a young kid and as a young adult street racing in the streets of Fort Worth and Oklahoma and other states I won't mention. So the desire and the draw to something that is like street racing is what No Prep Kings I see offering. You get out there with people that have real cars, and it's not a bunch of pro mods running in a class that used to be real cars. It is real cars, real people, real street racers getting out there and demonstrating what they can do with their cars, their talents, and their crews. And that was my initial draw to it. But I have to tell you, I went and watched it a few times without taking a car before I took a car out. And after seeing how hard those guys work, what the challenges are on racing on a track with that type of environment, a no prep track, you couldn't get any closer to real street racing. And the competition out there, and I've heard a bunch of different perspectives and views on what that program is, but I'm going to tell you, those guys out there running that program, whether it's the Invitational, whether it's Race Your Way In, or whether it's the guys trying to come up from the bottom, that is hard racing, hard work. You don't have a consistent environment being the track itself to race on ever. So you have to learn how to tune a lot of different environments and conditions at every race you go to. Every day you're there at the race, you have to be able to adapt at whatever's happening with that track and the environment out there. Those are some of the hardest working people in racing I've ever been around. And it's a tight-knit community. The platform that NPK and Discovery has given to people that want to come out there and try this out is amazing. You can go out there with just pretty much any kind of combination you want and be competitive, but it's a lot of hard work. It's a grind, but I'm going to tell you, it's extremely rewarding. Their fan base is bar none the biggest and most loyal fan base you'll ever come across in drag racing. I have been blown away by the fans.
Do you think that, that's the thing is we were just talking with Antron Brown, on the NHRA side of the fence about just kind of the overall health and well-being of the sport of drag racing. It feels like we're, these are heady times for the sport. Car culture seems to be alive and well. I mean, obviously there's, a bad news bit here and there and whatever people want to talk about with electric vehicles and all this stuff. But by and large, man, car culture is alive and well, from the streetcar scene. I mean, we've talked about this a bunch, streetcar takeover, all these airport events. I mean, late model high performance vehicles. I mean, it's hard to, I don't know that you could number how many twin turbo Corvettes and Dodge Vipers and Camaros exist in the country. And then you go over to the no prep world and it's booming, and everybody, don't you think the sport of drag racing, people get sensitive about this? But man, what Street Outlaws, the original show, the 405 group there on the streets of Oklahoma, and No Prep Kings, what they have done for the sport of drag racing, it can't be overstated. People get sensitive about it because I think it's easy to get jealous, right? You see those huge crowds and you hear how many t-shirts people are selling. And I think it's easy to get a little bit jealous, but man, they've made it fashionable to be a car guy again. I mean, it was when I was growing, I remember coming out of high school and I was like a weirdo for being a car guy. You know what I mean? Like it seemed like that ship had sailed, you know? Whereas now, you know, you're just seeing it more and more, a guy with a shop rag in his back pocket, right? You're seeing guys with car shirts on, you know, it just seems like they've reintroduced drag racing to popular culture. And I don't know that it's invaluable. I really believe it.
You know, I got to say, I mean, you're hitting on something that's very valid. And I've learned that just the short time I've been there is that, you know, the original guys, the original street outlaw guys, those are the guys that opened this platform up for even the NPK guys.
Yes.
You know, televising it, putting it out to the masses, letting the whole world, you know, see what this is all about. I think they have amazingly reinvigorated the sport of drag racing for sure by broadcasting and opening up to so many people through the social medias and through the TV networks. And that has set the platform for the NPK thing going on now. I think it's not even close to peaking. I mean, not only from a racer perspective, but from a fan perspective, this thing is just like climbing like nobody's business.
How much of that, I agree, firstly, but how much of that do you attribute to the focus on characters? I mean, you've seen both sides of that here in 2022. It was all the hubbub on the internet, on the World Wide Webs here a few weeks ago when you and John Odom were going back and forth. And so you've seen both sides, the good and bad of the character building and some of those storylines that get worked up and seemingly out of nowhere. But how much of that focus on human beings do you think is driving the bus? Because I mean, I saw some comments here while I was interviewing Antron, and there were plenty of people saying one of the last personalities, one of the only personalities in NHRA. Well, if you turn your head over towards No Prep Kings, I mean, from Ryan Martin to Chuck to Daddy Dave to Murder Nova, I mean, on Justin Swanstrom, on down the list, there's personalities galore. Do you agree that focus on the people is the difference?
I would tell you that no doubt, first of all, there are some strong characters over there and very differentiating characters as well. And but I'll tell you, it's obviously, you know, there's a production going on. They're filming, they're making a TV show, which I think is phenomenal, not only for the program, but for the sport in general, because again, you're opening the door to people that would have never had access to it and people to understand how big and how awesome drag racing still is and can still be even bigger. So that's really cool. But the one thing I have to say is, as much as there's a production there, there's as much or more a drag race there. That is hardcore, all out drag racing. There's no predicted outcomes. I mean, it is bring what you got, follow the rules, do your best, work hard, have the best crew you put together, and go win a race. I mean, it is hard racing. Those guys are racing their butts off.
Man, I was watching like from afar, obviously, our buddy Dion sending me videos and stuff like that. And I'm watching, and then I see the winner's circle photo and I look at the amount, the group that you have assembled around to be a part of Bad Fish Racing. I mean, you start thinking about Howard Moon, Mick Snyder. Let's start there. I mean, Mick Snyder is a former ADRL Pro Extreme World Champion, a dear friend of both of ours, but a really sharp young man. But then you introduce also Howard Moon to the fold. You've got Mike DePalma involved. I mean, you've got a great group of guys there. Jason Lee, Patrick Barnhill. Oh my goodness. I mean, Frankie Taylor was in the winner's circle photo. And I'm going, can you kind of touch on what it takes to be successful in No Prep Kings right now? Because this is not some backyard hot rods. These are some of the best guys in the world coming out to do battle, as you said, on a largely unprepared outlaw 8th mile. I mean, you ain't showing up with a back half hot rod and a big block Chevy with 2 stages on it, I mean, and having any success.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, you have to have my belief is you have to have a purpose-built car to go out there and be competitive to keep up with the guys that are currently running there. I mean, there are some stout cars, stout racers, stout crews, but to hit on the initial point you brought up, which is the team, you know, look, I've known Mick for a lot of years. When I first started running a blower years and years ago in the radio world, the first thing I did was hook up with Mick, and he brought Howard Moon on board, and I had phenomenal success and going to the top very quickly with those 2 guys. Now that I'm back with the blower, that's what pushed me back to thinking about Howard Moon again, because he was very instrumental along with Mick in getting me going fast very quickly, you know, say 10 years ago even. And immediately when we decided to go back to a screw blower, it was a no-brainer. That's who we got to get involved. And talk about the rest of my crew. I mean, Mike DePalma, his son Vincent. I mean, without these guys helping me, I couldn't do what I do. I could not do it by myself. I couldn't do it with a couple of hired hands. These guys, they are embedded in the program. They believe in the car, the team. They celebrate and have just as much reward in going rounds or winning a race that I do. I mean, I watch these guys get excited after a win, and I think they're more pumped up than I am, and that's awesome. That gives me so much excitement to go back and do it again, because it's not just for me, it's for everybody. And even beyond that, I have to say the fans that I didn't even know existed out there, some from even 10, 12 years ago when I was radio racing, I've never even met before, come by and tell me about the experience they had when I was radio racing and won a race or whatever. And just Dion Walrath, I mean, he's come on board to do my social media and all my content, and he's done a phenomenal job of reconnecting me with old fans and even with new fans now, allowing more and more people to be involved in what's going on here. And it's, again, not just about me and my car. It's about my team, and it's about the sport. It's about the NPK and the whole movement they've got going on, the platform they've given us to come do this. I mean, I just get goosebumps talking about it. This is one of the most exciting things I've done in a very long time. What
do you make of a couple of things I want to touch on. First and foremost, the escalation of this deal. You talked about how you don't feel like No Prep Kings is anywhere near the end. We've had conversations right here on this show, and I'm just curious if you agree. I mean, what's your take on it? I mean, because there becomes like a point of diminishing returns, right? Where it gets too far gone. I think there are people that would argue it's too far gone now. 3-second, 200-mile-an-hour, 8th-mile door slammers. But I mean, that the sport of drag racing, door slammer drag racing as a whole, could easily be described as completely out of control. I mean, we have 275 radial cars running well into the 3s, right? So, yeah. But if you kind of table that perspective, do you genuinely believe there's room to go? Do you think we're going to see more high-level teams get involved, or where do you think this deal is it going to become? Is there a thing in the future where there's going to be open in no prep races where the Murder Novas in the world are showing up that are outside of No Prep Kings? Do you think it'll exist primarily here? I mean, what do you think the future looks like for this type of drag racing?
Well, I can't really speak to what happens outside of the No Prep King organization or that world. What I can tell you is what's interesting, and me watching the show for so many years and now getting to go out there and be around some of these guys, is that you're seeing different people win races now. And the shifting of cars I think the different platforms, the different teams and cars are getting closer together and how they're competitive. And I think that's a great thing. But the biggest thing I would focus on and tell you to look at it is look at the crowd size out there. I mean, they fill the stands at every venue they go to. That you have 4 deep on every fence row. You walk through where all the cars are at in the pits, and there's just rows and rows of people all day long buying shirts, wanting autographs, wanting to come check out your car, wanting to talk to you about your car. And that's for every racer out there. Even if you're a first timer coming out, to do the small tire class, the big tire class, it doesn't matter. If you're out there and you have a car, the people are surrounding you, wanting to talk to you, wanting to know about it, and the crowds are growing, they're not shrinking. So to me, that tells it all. It's not peaking. I mean, the crowds are growing every venue you go to. It's a pretty neat movement.
What do you make of, and I'm going to put you on the hot seat here, right? They're about to get uncomfortable. I'm just joking. I've known you for quite a while now, and it's no secret that, you weren't out here doing this for fame. There are plenty of people who have sprinted towards No Prep Kings in order to secure more sponsors, or they think they need to be on TV to get their program where they want, or they just want to be famous, right? I mean, everybody, is seeking that 5 minutes of fame. You, Marty Robertson, not so much. I mean, I've seen you in action many times when you don't want mentioned. Don't put my name on it. I'll help, but I don't need anybody to know about it. Which is an incredible thing about you, a very philanthropic guy. But this is a complete about face. Has it been hard to kind of accept becoming a racing celebrity and being a personality out here? Because I know you're just as content to, go back in the trailer and talk about tune-ups and look at data, but now you're out there signing autographs, slinging T-shirts. I mean, has this been a challenge for you personally to put yourself out there to this level?
Well, just to make it clear, I don't view myself, as you said, as a star by any respect or by any.
Hey, man.
However, it has been very humbling. I'm getting asked to sign T-shirts more and more. People are asking for spark plugs out of the car to put in their little trophy case or whatever. And it's humbling. It makes you feel good. But the cool thing about it really is just connecting with the people out there. It's not about me. It's not about the car. It is about my team, because we're making an effort to go do something competitive. It doesn't matter what the sport is. When you do something competitive, there's no better feeling in the world than winning, right? So the feeling of winning is always the best thing, and you celebrate it as a family and as a team. It's even more so enjoyable. But for me, it's not about the fame. It's not about the money. It's not about trying to get sponsors. I'm not looking for any of that. I really enjoy the sport. I really enjoy the people that are out there. I've gotten to know some of the long-term racers, and I got to give a shout out. I don't know how many people know, because it's not talked about very much, but I'm on Team Cali, and that team right there, that group of racers, those are some of the best people you'll ever meet in your life. I mean, they're not just racers, but they are truly like a tight-knit unit, family. They come over all the time and give me just a little bit of guidance. Hey, Marty, think about this. Hey, Marty, think about that. And it has been so helpful to have those people surround me and help guide me through this, because when you go into this, you don't get a rule book. You don't get a set of guidelines to follow to do the program. You have to kind of find your way through it. To have somebody kind of behind you, pushing you this way, pushing that way, not really pushing you, but nudging you the right direction is what I should say, has been so inviting and so great to have a team like that. I'm very proud that I'm part of that team. Again, been very helpful. Bodie invited me last year, and we had a hard time putting it together. It had to do with supply chain issues and getting parts and getting a car built. Shout out to Larry Jeffers. He put a car together in a very short order for me to make this happen. It has been very supportive throughout the whole process and still supporting us. But back to your original question, it's more humbling than anything, Wes, just to have people come up and know who the car is and know who the team is, and call me by name and call the car by Batfish. That's all cool stuff. But for me right now, it's just about fishing my way through this. And hey, I said fishing, Batfish.
Oh yeah, I know. It was a great
one. Working my way through the process and learning it all, and just there's just so much support. Even some of the longtime invitational racers that I didn't know before have come over to introduce themselves and say, hey, if you need anything, let me know. I'll help you out. You just need help meeting people or whatever. So great community of people, all of them out there. They've been fantastic to race with.
What are your future aspirations? How do you see this whole deal shaken out? I mean, is the ultimate goal to be a part of that invitational field? I mean, is that kind of what we're seeing here? Is Marty Robertson and the Badfish Racing team going out there and kind of paying their dues, so to speak? I mean, to be honest, I've found it. I think it's a fantastic storyline that exists in the sport of drag racing to see guys such as yourself being willing to do that. That's a tough road to hoe, go around and feel like you're right there. You're on the cusp, but the invitational kind of, is that where you guys want to be? Is that something that you can see happening in the future? Is that the goal?
100%. That's the desire is to get an invitational. Look, my whole team, we're ultra competitive. All we care about is winning. It's hard work. I mean, especially this time of year when you're out there racing in August. I mean, August anywhere in the southern half of the U.S., just brutal heat. I mean, you're exhausted every day, all day. You don't sleep good. You wake up and you do it again over and over. So yeah, it's about winning as a team. It's about celebrating a win as a team. And we're ultra competitive. So yes, we absolutely want to go out there and race with the big dogs. And we know it's going to be no easy feat, and we know we're going to have to pay dues. We know we're going to get our asses handed to us, for lack of better words, for a little while. But we're willing to put in the work to get out there and be competitive with those guys if they'll let us in. Again, there's no roadmap to do that. Not sure what the process is. Don't care. We're going to work hard. We're going to push, and hopefully earn our way to be recognized enough to be invited to come race our way in.
Speaking of which, it was, like I said a minute ago, dealing with some of the personalities and knowing that there are people, that are trying to create a storyline. Do you kind of get a kick out of watching that, from afar, like, and seeing these things? Because I can just imagine, Marty, like seeing somebody getting all up in arms, and you're an even keeled guy for the most part, right? And I can see you just like, oh my gosh, everybody takes this stuff so seriously. I mean, is it kind of funny and fun to watch it unfold? I mean, we know it's serious business, right? But you can see that there are some people lean into the character a little bit more than others.
Sure. No, absolutely. There are people out there who you never hear a peep out of that have been racing. They race well. They win some of the rounds. They win some of the races. You got other guys that are, it seems like are all about the character. Everybody saw the video that John Odom put out about he and I up in the NMCA debacle up there in Martin, Michigan. That's a funny thing. I don't know what the original intent of that video was. At the end, he and I, shook hands, misunderstanding, no big deal. But there is a barrage of different levels of characters, if you will. And again, I don't know the path, but I know that, to your point, I'm a humble guy. I'm a quiet guy. I'm a no fuss kind of guy. But I do have buttons. You push them, you're gonna get buttons pushed back. So I'll leave it at that. We'll see what comes in the future. But I'm not out there to be a character. But my personality, my true personality, will come out as I get more and more uncomfortable with my environment, if that makes sense.
It 100% does. Okay, Marty, I know you're a busy guy. Last thing, but this is a good one. You mentioned it a minute ago, an in-house content guy. I think this is something that just to kind of take this towards a lesson or a business lesson. How important is that to the operation at this stage in the game? I mean, I don't know that people, especially outside of the No Prep Kings and Street Outlaws world where it's kind of commonplace. But I remember talking to Stevie Jackson after he went down and competed in Cletus McFarland's YouTube demo derby race. Lyle Barnett went down there, was involved, actually teamed up with Stevie. And they both came back saying, oh my God, everybody there had cameras everywhere. There's GoPros on everything. They've got a photographer following them around. You're putting that exact program in place for your racing operation. You mentioned Dion a minute ago. What do you think that is something that we will see take hold eventually in NHRA? Because I think there's a lesson there. I really do. That being willing to have the camera pointed at a driver, a human being, that's kind of it's not a common thing over on the professional, the NHRA side of life. Do you think that's going to become an increasingly important part of a race team? I mean, you got a crew chief, you got a clutch guy, you got a truck driver. I think we're going to see very soon where you better have somebody with a camera in their hands.
So you are putting me on the hot seat, of course, like you said you were. I think it's a very critical component, especially over with what we're doing at the platform at NPK. It's critical because that's how you're going to get the awareness of your team, your car, your racing program out to the masses. You're going to build your fan base by doing that. I think it's ultra critical. One, you want the support. You want the support of the fans. That's the main reason you're going out there, is to interact with the people. Number one, going over to the professional side of things. I mean, here as of late, the last couple of months, you've seen a couple of professional teams start to do some in-pit content live during races. I think it would be very wise for the professional level racing teams to grab a hold of this and do it for themselves, because nobody else is going to do it for them.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad that you said that, because that's something that I've been saying right here on this program for 270 episodes, that we're in a time where the tools are readily available. Right. I mean, yes. You've got a high definition camera in your pocket, more than likely. And it is high time to take matters into your own hands, because you can't wait for Discovery. You can't wait for Pilgrim. You can't wait for Fox or ESPN. You have the opportunity to tell your story yourself, and man, spin that camera around and start talking to it, because people want to hear what these folks, what the racing community, what their heroes and their competitors have to say. And a high tide lifts all boats, man. Well, Marty, thank you so much for your candor, your time. We genuinely appreciate getting to spend a little bit of time with you on a Wednesday afternoon, man.
Thank you, Wes. Appreciate it, buddy.
No problem, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Marty Robertson. Man, hey, dude, I know that Mike, we're kind of bouncing around a couple of oddities here with guests. We had Bob Tasca in the green room for a minute. Then we got wires crossed somewhere. I don't know.
Both him and Justin Bond had other things that they had to do. So Justin Bond was jumping on a plane. Bob Tasca was having an important board meeting. So we'll get both of those guys on again soon.
Yeah, we'll get them on next week, man. What do you make of all that MPK stuff? I mean, just, kind of hearing it from Marty, I think it's very interesting to talk about those crowds. How big of a deal are crowds? I don't know that.
It's a huge crowd. I mean, it's a huge crowd. A huge crowd is a huge deal, man. I mean, I know from my experience with my dad, racing in front of a huge crowd brought out the best in him. You're going to get a long burnout. You're going to get, little staging duels or burn downs, whatever you want to call them. Man. The atmosphere matters. And a lot of these guys will tell you they'll forego the check or the trophy, maybe not the trophy, but they'll forego the check if there's a big crowd there. And I think NPK is doing all three of them. And it's cool to hear Marty, who's had success in other realms of racing, sort of give his experience to wading into what we think is the circus over there, and everyone is a character or whatever, and you got to kind of find your way. And I think a guy like Marty, there's a reason why people were a little bit concerned about him, or a Manny Bajinga coming in there, and we're already seeing that with Marty with 2 straight wins. And I don't know what the path is, like Marty said, but it'll be interesting to see if he continues the success, or even the success he's had this year. Is that the path to getting an invitational berth, or however that works?
I don't know. I think that's the thing. We talk about it a lot, and I know there's a lot of questions about how do you get in? How do you get in? I think you got to be there. I think you got to stand the test of time. I mean, that seems to be kind of one of the key things. I point to Justin Swanstrom. I point to Callie Mills, some people that went out and tore up a bunch of stuff, toured all over creation, went to Idaho, went to Denver, did a lot of these things that are not glamorous, made those long drives, struggled, tore up a bunch of stuff, and they were still there. And I think it's that demonstrating some staying power, but it's also, I think, demonstrating some star power. I mean, we measure these things internally, where we go back and look at, the rate, how a video did, who was on there, and how many views it got, and how many shares it got. And I can tell you right now, just by this program here today, Marty's a needle mover. I truly believe that Marty's a needle mover, and it's going to be interesting to see how the No Prep Kings group handles this, I guess, just over the long haul here. And because they've got guys like Manny Bajinga, won 4 races in a row, I believe, that want to be involved. And my big takeaway from it is, man, they've created the hot thing. And I don't know that it matters what kind of cars they're racing. I don't know that it matters what size the tire is. I don't know that it matters wheelie bars or not. I don't know that any of that stuff matters. That's the place to be. That's what people are talking about. It's where the crowd is, right? It's where the action is.
They have the leverage, and they can do it. They can operate however they want.
Yeah, I mean, you see highly competitive people like Marty Robertson, like Manny Bajinga, and many others, right, that are going, you know what? I don't care what they're doing. I want to throw my hat in the ring with those guys, and I want to see how I do. I want to be there. And my takeaway from it is, who's laying awake? I hope someone's laying awake at night in Glendora, California, or Indianapolis, Indiana, at the NHRA, or at some of these other sanctions and series, asking themselves, what can we do to make our premier category the talk of town? What can we do? Like, are we really thinking about what's important to these guys? Like, how quick can we get our racing on a television show? How quick can we, pack these tracks out? Not wonder like, hey, this is a track we do okay at. This is a track we do okay at, but these ones are kind of lukewarm. Maybe you should find ways to solve that problem. I know it's not as easy, as maybe we're making it sound, but if radio ads and TV ads aren't working, maybe you got to give away 10,000 tickets. Maybe you got to give away 50,000 tickets. What can you do to create that atmosphere, right, that people will crawl across broken glass?
I think I would
to be there.
It would be nice if it was that easy, or you could do it overnight like that, or make it change. But what we're seeing with NPK is something that's been building for years. It's built off the success of the original Street Outlaws show, and the way these guys build characters and have built them across 5 seasons now and continue to do that. That is what gets people to commit to going to these races, or fans to travel across the country to go. They want to see their stars. And unfortunately, the only way to do that is like to start now, and to start building start building those opportunities and those stars, and take some of the focus off just, what happens at your actual event. I think NPK is like such an interesting case study in so much of this stuff. And back to our original point, they can kind of do whatever they want. Like this past weekend, they had a tragic death of one of the main producers of the show, and they decided they're not going to accrue points, and that episode's not going to be filmed for TV, and the show goes on. And any normal drag racing situation, the decision would have been different. I'm not saying it would have been better or worse, but that's a little bit unprecedented when you think about it in how they're handling it, because they're having to do so many different things at one time. They're having to film a TV show. They're having to put on an event. They're having to manage all these personalities, all these things that are going on. And at the end of the day, they can make the decision that they feel is best for them without really caring about the impact it's going to have on the sport or anything else. They're kind of operating in their own little bubble. And I thought it was interesting to see that from MPK this weekend.
Yeah, because to your point, and that should become a drinking game as well.
To your point, it's a great line in a show like this,
line.
and in a podcast. It's a go-to.
Well, it's like, dude, can you imagine in a situation where the NHRA would decide on Friday that they're not contesting or they're not counting this one?
I mean, there's been times where there's been boycotts or they've, out of respect decided not to continue the event or something. But yeah, I felt like it was a bit of a unique approach. But
it goes to show you they can basically do whatever they want. They're writing their own rules from week to week, and it's a really incredible thing that they've got this deal to the point where they can do that type of stuff, man. I mean, and it's not. I don't know. It's a very, very interesting situation.
It's another example of the leverage that and just that massive. They're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, massive, massive leverage. And I think that what I want to see happen next, really, and I think this could happen, and I don't know how they handle it, but I mean, are we in the coming, days, weeks, months? I think that there is a possibility that we could see the futures category become as interesting as the invitational itself. I mean, obviously there's huge star power over there, and nothing's going to be as big of a deal as Lizzie Musey and Daddy Dave and Murder Nova and Ryan Martin and all these superstar personalities, right? But I mean, imagine if the stars and moon align in the coming weeks in Idaho, perhaps, and you see Manny Bajinga's Red Mustang alongside Marty Robertson's Badfish Barracuda. I mean, I'm talking, we could see some things happen inside that futures category that could really stand on its own, is my point.
That may be incentive for Pilgrim or the No Prep Kings organization to move those guys into the Invitational, because you don't want that cannibalizing the Invitational. If that show becomes too good, or if the racing over there is packed with stars, it's like, we need to take a look at this and move some of these guys up and open up spots and opportunity for another crop to come in.
Because I'm feeling a spinoff. I just saw it in the comments here. I wouldn't put it past them making a spinoff. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just something that we see these reality shows do. They multiply. They're like rabbits, right? I mean, they've got one, and the next thing every character's got their own show. They can't make enough of them. And I just would not at all be surprised. That's why I asked Marty, do you see this going beyond the filming of a show? Right? I mean, that's what they're doing. There's 15 locations that they're going to film an episode of No Prep Kings here in 2022. But I'm wondering if in the future, you've got that. You've got the No Prep Kings thing, and it's this controlled cast. You've got 32 guys and gals that are the stars of your show, and you continue to build that and develop it and fill holes as needed. But I do wonder if they couldn't bring back kind of that Bristol mega race type of environment where once, twice a year, spring and fall, there's the No Prep Nationals or whatever, and some of those guys show up, but it's come one, come all. I just really think that could be something that would take that deal to the next level. And when I see the people that are getting involved with No Prep Kings, I can't help but feel like something like that is on the horizon. I mean, it was made public here in the last couple of weeks that former general manager at the Texas Motorplex, Andy Carter, very well-known, respected, liked guy in our industry, has joined the fray there. Gotten involved with Sam Corcus and the team at Pilgrim Studios. They've had Jim Hughes involved with the series since its inception. Another guy that's beloved in our sport, very well known, very well respected. There's clearly some pieces in place that would allow them to kind of take this deal to the next level. Not that they need to, not that there is even another level for them to pursue, to be totally honest, but it does feel like there's something in the works. I'm seeing some people here, Sledgehammer Motorsports, going to happen with small tire. I agree. I mean, I think that their seeds are being planted for whatever's going to be, the next version of this. Because I would not be at all surprised to hear Sam Corcus or the people that are involved there saying that, hey, we've already got concepts for 8 different iterations of this just ready to go when the time is right.
And that's agree? Smart. That's another smart thing that we talk about companies doing. You work in the future like that on ideas 2, 3, 4 iterations down the road, but you have to have that discipline to sort of hold them back, because if you release it all at once, then they're going to cannibalize each other, and the flame is going to burn out quicker. And it would not surprise me at all if that's the case. I'm sure they've got a roadmap 5 years in it.
I mean, I think of Apple, right?
Apple's a great example.
There's stories about, Brad Anderson Engineering, right here in our sport where they've got, the Brad 22 heads are already developed. I'm being exaggerative here with the Brad 22s, but I'm just saying that but like you said, it requires the discipline to say, hey, we're not going to release that. We don't need to release that yet. We can wait 2-3 years.
Drag racing, it's so tempting
to do that. Oh, it's so tempting.
Everyone wants to just rotate the earth tomorrow. We're going to make the change that's going to change everything.
Well, hey guys, let's do a few minutes. I got a couple of script reads we got to do, buddy. So let's do a little bit of Q&A. Let's get JT in here and have JT deliver some questions. We'll do 15-20 minutes of Q&A. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of this again, man. It's seeing these crowds and seeing the comments, it really, really, really makes this a lot of fun. So thank you for being a part of it. If you're watching along, remember to click like, click subscribe, click share, help us spread the gospel of drag racing. And even more importantly, support the companies that support us. Elite High Performance right down the road here in Fort Worth, Texas. Log on to elitehp.com, updated daily and ever-changing inventory. Stroud Safety, 100% made in America safety products right up the road in Oklahoma City. Of course, Mark Beatty and the gang at Redline Synthetic Oils supporting us start to finish. And as well as Flow Racing, the world leader in sports live streaming, a huge partner of ours here at Drag Illustrated and the Wes Buck Show. They're actually airing episodes of the Wes Buck Show right now. I heard through the grapevine, Mike, this is big news, that they're showing clips from the show during oil downs and during downtime at some of the races they're broadcasting. Yeah, during the PDRA race, during any downtime, they were playing clips of the show. So
awesome.
Big things happening around here, man. But let's get a couple of Q&As here. JT's telling me that he doesn't have anything
is this an official like after hours event? JT, do you have any booze on you? You got your Coors?
Yeah, I just got I don't have them ready.
Oh,
I can go get one.
Not cold. Yeah, all right. See, here we go. We got a question right now from Drag Race Central. Do you guys think the NHRA national event structure needs to be reworked, giving sportsmen racers their own events? Ooh, I'm gonna piss some people off right here. No. No, I don't. The question about this has been something that's been kind of floating around the sport of drag racing for a long time. Should the NHRA Pro Show be separated from the Sportsman Show? I can make an argument for it. I really can. I do think that there is room in the sport of drag racing for an entertainment-based program, a tighter, more concise offering, something that's more of a half a day or an evening, something like that, a thrill show. I do think of Monster Jam. I know people get tired of that reference, but it's a solid one, right? It's a great example of a tightly
across
together
all
show.
Entertainment. We talk about the condensed shows. A concert is 3 hours long or something. Yep. Football games are 3 hours long. Having an NHRA Pro only show that's 3, 4, 5 hours long on a Friday or Saturday, I think that could work.
That would work, too. I think.
I think that there's room for it. I think that it could happen, but the problem is your sportsman, you have to go into it well knowing that your sportsman program is not going to stay what it is. People sleep on the fact that the magic of Brainerd this coming weekend, the magic of the U.S. Nationals is being guilty by association. You want to tow across the country, right, to enter Super Gas because John Force is going to be there. Because
it's a national event.
Not be willing to post that on your Facebook. You may not be willing to tell everybody that, but the fact remains that is a difference maker. I've done it. I have personal experience in putting up crazy amounts of money, crazy amounts of special treatment, fanfare, pomp, circumstance, all these things. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, putting up $100,000 to win in year 3 of the World Series of Promon in Denver, Colorado, and having 11 cars show up, right? No entry fee, right? Park red carpet, park in the staging lanes if you want. Whatever you want, we'll give it to you. Beer, ice, deep fuel for your generator, whatever you want, we'd have given it to you. The very next, 2 weeks later, there was 35 cars parked in the gravel at the NHRA U.S. Nationals to race for $10,000 and be treated like animals, right? And it just goes to show you that people want to be there. It is very difficult to outrun that. The 60, 70 years of tradition, the Wally, just again, the guilty by association, being in the pits with all these superstars and all these living legends and perusing the staging lanes and bumping into Connie Coletta or bumping into Tony Schumacher. that it's very difficult to outrun that. I mean, it's very difficult with any amount of.
And NHRA's business model is built around that also.
It is
about getting as many cars in there as they can, and hopefully as many fans, and dragging this thing out as long as possible. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, Red Fergus is in the comments right here. Isn't it a divisional, like a national event without the pros? And I mean, yeah, it is. And the proof's in the pudding. That's a tough sell. I mean, it's just even in the title is difficult because, I mean, do NBA games draw better than G League games? Yeah. These are the pros, and everybody gets sensitive about it because
Drag Race Central says that right here, that if they want them to be, that they want the sportsman's class to be minor league, minor leagues usually don't compete in the pros, on the same day at any other.
I agree. I think the changes, the change that I would make would be to find a way to make the sportsman programs stand on their own a little more so. Like I've often thought in the past that like I was kind of thinking more along the lines of pro stock, but taking one of your categories that are healthy, pro stock, pro mod, and letting them be the show on Saturday night. They qualify on Friday and they race on Saturday night, and give people a reason to come Saturday and watch this particular show if that's what they're particularly passionate about. And it kind of clears some of the people out of the pits, clears some cars out of the run order for Sunday so that you can move faster with your other categories.
I like that idea. And you could split it up, even have pro stock and pro mod even. Yeah. Or whatever, but yeah. And make the show good for Saturday night. I mean, people want to see a good show on Saturday night, right?
I agree, man. I mean, we're obviously considering putting on another race next year. And that's the first thing that I task myself with is if I do a 3-day race, how can I make it worth buying a ticket on Friday, worth buying a ticket on Saturday, worth buying a ticket on Sunday? How can I make it worth coming back each night, right? And you've got to give the fans something that they're not going to be able to see. Like you have to give them some finality. I think that's one of the sport of drag racing's issues is that finality is hard to come by, right? I mean, if you want to see something start to finish, you're camping across the street from the track Thursday to Monday. I mean, it's a rough go of it, but I think if you give people an opportunity to see something, begin and end. This is a crazy example, but the Big Dog shootout at Piedmont Dragway, it's a Thursday night. They start qualifying at 5. They run the final at 10. That's probably even too long. I mean, 5 hours is a full night, but still you're getting people home at a reasonable time. They can still go to work.
15 minutes is the between round time clock.
Man, I love it.
I mean, in Street Outlaws, MPK Spoilers is in the comments right now talking about that was one of the smartest things that Pilgrim Studios did with No Prep Kings is introducing that grade 8 on Friday night. Before that, it was the team attack, but the whole effort behind that was giving folks a reason to stay there for the game on Saturday night.
Yeah, because you are entertaining this crowd. You're putting on a show, and you have to give them something. It's why show up? Why not just wait till Sunday then, if that's the case?
What I think I would love to see, I don't know that the NHRA, I think they need less events, and I know that's a tough sell, but I think here's the way I would do it. I would reduce the schedule to like 16 or 18 national events. These go to strong markets. And I even thought about maybe having 2 dates that are like entered into a lottery where, hey, this year, you've got to be an NHRA member track. Try to incentivize being an NHRA member track. And as long as you fit within these confines, we're going to do a lottery every year and we're going to do a national event in a new area. And maybe it's only a dozen tracks or 6 tracks and you're rotating around. Like one year they go to Columbus because Columbus won the lottery, like the NBA number 1 draft pick, right? I mean, you could create content around it and you could introduce NHRA to like a new market or somewhere that you don't normally go that maybe doesn't have all the creature comforts of a ZMAX or a Vegas or whatever, but you could go to a market and introduce yourself, make a big impression. Maybe you pull back on some of the show. You don't run all those sportsman categories. I also thought about financially how you would offset that reduction in revenue would maybe by taking the WWE example of doing house shows where maybe 6 times a year you do smaller shows that aren't, SummerSlam, but they're like some of your go-to guys or some of your B teams that don't have, and you go to Darlington, right? You go to smaller venues, you instead of running a 16-car field, you run 8. Or maybe you just book in 4 Top Fuel cars, 4 funny cars, and it's going to be an NHRA house show. And we're going to go to this track that's tiny. We're going to run the cars 8th mile instead of 1,000 foot or whatever because there's not a lot of shutdown. Be willing to make those changes to get the brand in new markets, take some of that barnstorming match race days from the 60s and 70s and 80s and bring that back, because you would give some of your lesser talent, and not lesser talent, but just not as far along in their process, give those guys an opportunity to flourish without having to race freaking Antron Brown, without having to race Steve Torrance and some of these world beaters that have massive resources and have all this experience. Let a guy like Cameron Ferret comes to mind. Let a guy like Will Smith, let those guys go earn their stripes at 4, 5, 6 annual house shows. I mean, you could create a series. Like, I would go to a sponsor and say, hey, we need to do 6 house shows in 2023. We need to pay these guys to show up. No winner's purse, right? Each guy's going to get money to show up. You're going to get to make 2 runs on Friday, and then we're going to bring you back for a shakedown on Saturday mid-morning or whatever, and then we're going to draw names out of a hat and run a little shootout, right? And just give these guys an opportunity to go get themselves out there, make runs, just get in the rhythm of it. Because I look at some of these guys that throw their hat into the ring. Take some balls, man.
It'd be nice if you had sponsors big enough where you could have some big teams, where you could actually do something like this, where those guys were earning their stripes to get into a ride. Like that's your B team.
Where do you go to do that right now? I mean, you don't. I think about, imagine being Will Smith.
Your own team. You got to build your own. Will Smith.
You got to build your own team.
Imagine being Will Smith.
Yeah.
Clean cut, well-spoken young guy, chock full of talent and energy and enthusiasm, piss and vinegar. The dude's got it, right? And he's a smart marketer. He's a sales guy. Like, he knows the lay of the land. How does that dude, how does he really establish himself? He's either going to have to rent a ride, build his own program like a la Krista Baldwin. I think about some of the young folks we have in our space right now. Man, if we could create an environment that fostered organic growth, like, it's a miracle that Antron Brown worked his way up the ranks and went from pro stock motorcycle to owning his own Top Fuel team, right? He's the exception to the rule. The rule is you're rich as hell, you've got a need for speed, and you go buy all the best stuff and hire all the best guys, right? If there was a place for guys, this is why the IHRA, this is a great little segue, this is why it's so important that the IHRA is healthy, because that's what the IHRA was in many ways. I know that people get sensitive about that stuff. Nobody wants to play second fiddle, but that's really what it was. Guys went and ran IHRA national events and cut their teeth and learned how to do it with hopes of eventually moving into NHRA competition. I think the NHRA needs its own IHRA. Like, it needs its own in-house feeder system, so that a person that maybe doesn't have 1.5 million but has 500,000 or has $250,000, this shit's not that expensive.
Maybe that's why it doesn't get the respect that it probably deserves. In sports, is because it's pretty well known that if you have enough money, you could probably buy yourself a nice a good program. Basically,
that's the challenge across all of racing too. Yeah. But I think
but probably more in drag racing.
Oh yeah, for sure, because it's
other racing.
There's a class for you. Whatever car, however fast you want to go, we got something for you. And that is the problem with drag racing trying to present itself as an entertainment show, because at its core, it's trying to serve so many masters, and it's trying to get every car on the track from Top Fuel all the way down to, whatever
modified or whatever
stock or whatever. And you got to get them all on there on the same day or on the same weekend. And it all just gets kind of cluttered. The shows and the organizations in the motorsports that do the best as far as presenting entertainment in a concise package have just one event, like a NASCAR race. It's 3 hours long. We got one type of car on track, and that's it. And I think that until we start separating some of this stuff out, I think basically what your points have been is that the stuff kind of needs to all be compartmentalized and separated. And until we're able to figure that out, we're going to have this challenge.
Well, and I think it goes back to this ongoing identity crisis that exists in the sport of drag racing and the ego, right? And I've had conversation with folks before when the answer was obvious. I won't name names. I should. It's 2022, so I will. I was having a discussion with a guy, Mike Baker, at the IHRA, He was the technical director for the IHRA. This would have been at PRI like a decade ago.
Man,
and
he had a tough job.
He did have a tough job. And I like Mike a lot, to be honest. But I remember having a conversation with him, and I said to him, I was involved with the NHRA Pro Mod series at the time, and we had a pretty solid rule set. I mean, roots were at like 2,600 and 14 and a half over or 14 over, and nitrous cars were at like 2,450. And this was when like 855s was a big engine, a lot of clutch cars. I mean, it was pretty good, right? The cars were running like 580s, and we had decent car count. It was growing. There was some momentum, and news broke that the IHRA was going to kind of return to its roots. This was when Scott Gardner took over as president of the IHRA. And there was really a lot of excitement and enthusiasm around this. Like, Scott's a great guy, well-known, successful track operator, a lot of friends, a lot of people really respect Scott Gardner. So I thought IHRA, man, these guys are about to do something big. So I went and got grabbed Mike Baker by the arm, and I said, hey, man, what do I got to do to get you guys to just run NHRA rules? Like, what we could do here, and it's I get it, a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, but if IHRA would just run NHRA rules, we will increase the inventory for the whole community, right? We won't have guys.
I remember this conversation. It was at
you
PRI,
were standing beside me.
Yeah, I was standing right there. Yeah.
And I begged him, didn't I? I mean, I begged him. I said,
it made sense. It didn't make sense not to do it, really.
No, I mean, and I told him, I said, man, we could do something really significant for the sport of drag racing right now, because we're going to give guys opportunities to race. You know, is at the time the heaviest hitters in the category Mike Castellana, Belushi, Danny Rowe, Brad Personette, the list goes on. Steve Matusik. I tried to convince them that these guys may not come run every IHRA race, but they'll run 2 or 3. And if you guys have confidence in your product, that's what you need. All you need to do is get them on your side of the fence, and then it's up to you to get them to come back. It's up to you to make them feel like this is where they want to be. But they're not going to come at all if they've got to change all their stuff to do it. You've got to reduce the barrier to entry. So let's say there's 100 some car at the time. Let's say the NHRA Pro Mod Series probably had like 25 to 30 active participants. I said, all these guys could literally go to one of your races on one weekend, leave their rig at the track, and then, haul over to an NHRA race the next weekend. This would be a fantastic thing. And he literally looked at me and said, I ain't kissing the NHRA's ring. We ain't running their rules. We're going to do our own rules. We're going to have IHRA rules. IHRA is where Pro Mod started. And I was like, yeah, I agree. You're not wrong. And I understand how difficult that is, but we can't let our ego get in the way on this shit. We just can't. And that's, I think, something that I hope we all need to accept that to some extent, because drag racing, we get in our own way a lot. I mean, we got like ripped to shreds on the Drag Illustrated Facebook page a couple of weeks ago because we put up a list of the top 10 winningest top 10 winningest drivers in NHRA history. And I guess we didn't adequately label it pro or sportsman only or pro only. And people get all up in arms. Dude, the NBA doesn't count the Harlem Globetrotters in their record book, right? It's the Harlem Globetrotters. It's it goes without saying, but the egos are so big. And that's the problem. We're not going to get people to want to level up if everybody gets treated the same. I think that's one of the issues that exist in PDRA, is that everybody, whether you're a top junior dragster or top junior dragster racer, or a junior dragster racer, or a pro 632 guy, or a pro nitrous guy, they make a massive effort to make everybody feel like we're here for you. And that is great. That's something the PDRA should be proud of. However, it does create an environment where, why do I want to level up? Why do I want to move up to the next class? Because we all race for good money. We all get primo parking. Does that make sense? I mean, I do think that you got to put some breadcrumbs down to get people to want to aspire to move to the next level. It's obviously a very tough thing, because we all think what we're doing is the most important thing in the world, right? But man, we have to find a way to get out of our own way in some of these places. Johnny Placino in the comments, look at PDRA Pro 632 this past weekend, held 3 NHRA Pro Stock cars because they allowed that package in their rules and it added to the show. No doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. Brian McCaddy, we'll take a couple more questions if you guys want to throw them in there, because I got all revved up there now. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, you better go.
Yeah,
change shirts. Change.
That's right.
Any inside info on Jeffers' ideas or his vision for NHRA? I know he's just taken the reins, but curious if you guys have heard anything. We've reached out. All that we've heard so far is a sportsman. That was exactly what was said to me, was sportsman, that they are going to invest heavily in further developing their sportsman program. It's no secret in the sport of drag racing that the IHRA Summit Super Series was far and away the best sportsman program in all of drag racing. And I think that they're looking to kind of get the IHRA sportsman program back to its back to where it used to be. What happens beyond that, I really don't know. I've asked those questions. I mean, is there a future that's going to include funny cars, or is there a future that's going to include pro stock or pro mod? I don't think that's on the radar immediately. I really don't. Mike, have you heard otherwise? I haven't.
No, I haven't.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay, so Drag Race Central, 110% agree. If you're wanting to get treatment like a nitro team, go nitro racing. I agree. And I know that's can be tough, and it can be a tough pill to swallow, but man, it's, we have to do more of that. We have to make sure that their incentives are there. And you know what? NHRA, the higher ups, the people in power, they have responsibility there too, because there's ways to do it. And it typically starts with the winner's check. You know what I mean?
It does. We said that the whole time, like you got to pay these guys, the professionals, you're giving them breadcrumbs. You got guys over here on the No Prep King series making more money. And
I'll tell you, man, there has to be, I'm seeing something go on right now in the NHRA Pro Mod series. I'm seeing there's the racers, the onus to promote the series is being thrust onto the racers. I don't know if you guys have seen it. JR Gray is posting up memes. Lyle Barnett's posting up memes. I believe Stevie Jackson there. And what has happened is this group of racers has taken it upon themselves. Like, man, we got to get people excited. We got to get people talking about this stuff. We've got to do what some of the other groups are doing, and they're doing it. But that's problematic, because that's not really the responsibility of the racers. If it comes naturally and it's happening and it's authentic, I think that makes sense. But the same way there has to be Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan, there has to be Vince McMahon. There has to be a circus master. And I really think that that's what the NHRA needs right now, is somebody that is extremely passionate about this stuff, that will serve as the circus master, will serve as the promoter, will drive the bus and wave the flag. And then when J.R. Gray and Justin Bond go head to head and there's some words exchanged, that's just gravy, right? That's just icing on the cake. So anyways, guys, I want to thank everybody again one last time, all of our sponsors, all of our viewers, everybody involved in this show. Remember, August 31st, a couple of weeks from today, we'll be broadcasting live from John Force Racing in Brownsburg, Indiana. Very exciting. All three of us will be there. Huge shout out to all of our sponsors. We don't have script reads for everybody, but Stroud Safety, Flow Racing, Redline Synthetic Oils, Elite High Performance. Over my shoulder, you'll see Holly Performance Parts, Sand Haulers of America. Takes an army to pull this deal off, and we appreciate their support. Guys, thanks. This is a good episode, don't you think?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
270?
270. Wow.
270 episodes.
Oh, wow.
Yep, Mike's been here since the beginning.
Yeah, he's been here since like
a week ago.
261.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you guys so much. Remember, click like, click share, help us spread the gospel of drag racing, keep these conversations going. It's our responsibility to keep everybody fired up about the sport of drag racing through the week. If you're headed up to Brainerd, Minnesota for the NHRA national event this coming weekend, look me up. I'll be hanging out in or around the pro. I'll be all over the place. Going up
Hopefully
there.
Calm down by then.
No, I got
you're pretty up on a tire.
I don't know why. What happened?
I don't know, man.
What happened?
Espresso shots. Maybe
I didn't even drink any espresso.
Yeah.
I did have some pre-workout this morning, but that's a daily thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was several hours ago, man. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week.
All right.
Later,
Thanks,
y'all.
Let me play music. Oh, I missed the music. Hold on. Don't end the broadcast till I play the music.
You want me to sing?
Yeah. There we go.
See y'all.